Welcome to Swish and Flick, an all Potter podcast.
Swish and flick. Everyone? Swish and flick.
Hello and welcome to episode 105 of Swish and Flick. I'm Tiffany.
I'm Megan.
I'm Katie.
And I'm the Hufflepuff named Crumb, Victor Crumb, the Hufflepuff.
And this episode is sponsored by Aaron Weaver. Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks,
Aaron. Crumbs of Slytherin.
No, I'm not.
You've weaved a place in my heart.
Aw. Thank you, Kate.
I'm going to weave right back to being a Hufflepuff because I'm Crumb.
Today we will be discussing the first half of chapter 31 of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, the third task. So make sure that you have read the chapter. You can read half or a whole. And you're ready to plunge into the details.
I kind of think that you should have used something pertaining to a maze as an adjective. You know what I mean?
We talked about this in the
went
last
Or a
with what
chapter.
was
verb, I
next.
mean.
I'm just going. If I bounce
Whatever.
around, I'll never do them all.
Should we just point out that, so this chapter 31, we've split into 2 episodes.
Yes.
It's just a lot.
Yes.
Okay,
So,
so last episode, 103, which
Should have
you
been
will
2.
have listened to, is wickedly long. It should have been 2. So from now on, I'm going to start splitting chapters that are really long.
Not every chapter, but chapters that need it.
It's time for the
Okay, guys, last time, Harry really needed to tell Dumbledore about his little seer dream. And while he's waiting for Dumbledore to come back, because they have to search the grounds, right?
Yeah.
His curiosity gets the better of him, and he stumbles into a few memories. There's so many Death Eaters we learn about. We learn a little bit about Harry's scar, bless you,
bless you.
and Neville's parents, and is Snape a good guy or a bad guy?
TBD, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
He's bad. He's good. He's bad. He's good. I don't know.
That's
He's
literally
it's
the
like
so
series.
good he's
you know
bad.
when you take like a flower, he likes me not, or it's, he
Yeah.
loves me, he loves me not.
Mhm.
Snape is good.
He
Snape is
loves
bad.
me
Snape
not.
is good. Snape is bad.
Yes.
Which petal does it land on? Dun dun dun.
lands on my pedal because it's time for me to read. Well, all right. Obviously, everything Harry learned the night before was quickly shared with Ron, Hermione, and Sirius. But he left out the bit about Neville's parents because he's not a total jerk.
Mm.
So they talk for a bit. Harry goes to bed angry at Voldemort because, you know, who wouldn't? He's nasty. June is upon them, and it's time for the third test. Dun-dun-dun-dun. Harry's practicing with his friends. I can't believe he has some. And they see, I don't know who Malloy is. They
But
see,
he's doing some strange
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, Malloy's doing some strange things.
Oh, my goodness.
Malfoy is doing some strange things like talking into his hand. I wonder why. Harry gets another letter from Sirius, and then there's a new article about Harry in the paper. Oh, fun. And then Hermione has a theory about how Rita is getting her news. And in a wonderful moment, the Weasleys show up for Harry because they're his family, and it's just amazing. And I'm only going to read half of this chapter summary. I'll summarize the rest of it in the next episode.
In the next episode.
Also, I do talk about how Cedric's dad's a jerk.
Yes, I did add that to your section.
But I'm going to discuss it in my summary of the next chapter. Next half.
Okay. So we open up with Ron whispering to Harry that Dumbledore reckons Voldemort's getting stronger. He doesn't say Voldemort, though. And I wrote in there that I believe that this really scares him.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Because, well, and as it should, because his most trusting, strong wizard is acknowledging the things that you fear. And it scares Ron so much, it makes him shiver.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he literally shivers at that thought.
Shiver me timbers.
And especially with, like, Ron's character. So, Ron and I share this. We want to think that everything, sunshine, daisies, buttermellows, right? Everything is super great, and we don't want to believe that
Is that what he
anything's going
says?
on. Sunshine, daisy, buttermellow.
Buttermilk?
Yeah, turns buttermellow.
I thought it was something else.
What did you think
What
it
did you
was?
think?
Bottom mellow? I don't know. Bottom yellow.
Okay.
Like
okay,
he
I
wanted-
hear it. It's
'cause-
buttermellow, though.
Because he wants his bottom to be yellow.
Okay. That's fine.
I'm
If
leaving.
your
Goodbye.
bottom's yellow, you might
Anyways.
want to get that checked out.
Ron,
He's trying to turn the rat yellow.
yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant his bottom.
the rat's bottom.
Got it.
He's yellow belly. What?
That's true. That's true. Maybe that was a hint early on.
Oh my god. Tiffany.
You're welcome.
But he just wants everything to be all like
Hunky dory.
hunky dory great. And unfortunately, it's so not. And it's going to get so much worse. Harry shared everything that happened in the Pensieve and what Dumbledore had shared with him after, except the stuff with Neville's parents, as Sarah said. And he did make sure that he shared everything with Sirius because he wrote to him as soon as he left Dumbledore's office. Ron then goes on and asks if Dumbledore trusts Snape, even though he knows that he used to be a Death Eater. And flat out, Harry says yes. And I can see how this information, even though Dumbledore trusts Snape, could make Harry even more apprehensive about him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
even though, like, your most trusted advisor, the guy that you look up to, icon kind of material, even though he trusts him, Harry's experiences with him kind of lead him to believe otherwise. So I feel like he's like, okay, you trust him, but I'm still on the fence.
Yeah. Like kind of ignoring it. Like he trusts him, but I don't.
Yeah. I think deep down Harry like wants to be able to trust him, but I just don't think he does at this moment in time, especially with what goes on and blaming him, especially everything in 6 and whatever. Anyways, moving on. So Hermione had not spoken for about 10 minutes, which was like not normal. And she looked like she needed to relieve some of her thoughts in a Pensieve. And then she just like, Rita Skeeter. And Ron's like, what? Why are you worrying about Rita? Like, how can you be worrying about her right now? And she's like, I'm just thinking. Remember what she said to me in the 3 broomsticks? I know things about Ludo Bagman that would make your hair curl. This is what she meant, isn't it? She reported his trial. She knew he'd passed information to the Death Eaters. And Winky, too. Remember? Quote, Ludo Bagman is a bad wizard. Mr. Crouch would have been furious he got off. He would have talked about it at home. Yeah, but Bagman didn't pass information on purpose, did he? Hermione shrugged. See, and that's the thing with, like, Ron. Like, he wants to believe the best in Ludo.
Yeah.
Quidditch star and all.
But
You know
then
what I
he'll,
mean?
like, with the whole Madame Maxine, wow, you know, she is.
And that's the prejudices that he grew up with, unfortunately. I feel like maybe Molly and Arthur didn't do a very good job with that.
Yeah, I was
Just straight
gonna
up, you
say,
know what I
like,
mean?
Well, it's one of those things
It's
like...
passed down.
Yes. We were discussing this the other day.
We were.
Yes.
We were. And it's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
But this is how things change, which is it's a good thing. Like, Ron says these things now, and later on we see
He has some growing up
he
to do.
grows.
We've
Yeah.
discussed this too.
I mean, you can't ask, we've said this before, you can't ask someone to flip and change overnight.
Yeah.
I can't say it always doesn't happen like that 100%. There are probably people that see or have something done and they completely change their mind. But usually it'll probably take people a long time to grow. And I think all we can ask for people to do is to grow and get better and learn more information and have some empathy.
Yes.
I'm done. I'm not done, but I'm done with that. Did you want to say something?
I was just gonna say that, like, I think that this is Ron's prejudice coming through. You know, I mean, because yes, he wants to believe the best of Ludo Bagman because Ludo Bagman was set up on this high pedestal. Just like if you think about how Ludo got out scot-free of the trial because of who he is, and like you can tell that even now it's the same as it was back then for Ludo.
Yeah.
So, like, even though it came out that he did this, people still held him up high and was like, no, look, he's Ludo Bagman. And because Ron grew up in the wizarding world, unlike Harry and Hermione, he believes the best of Ludo because that's what was portrayed through the media.
Yeah.
Like he can't do any. He didn't do it because he's a Quidditch star. Like why would he do that? Why would he pass information?
And, like, Ron has no reason to believe anything differently because of what the media put out to everybody. How did the Daily Prophet write it? You know, I mean, Rita was sitting in there. So
Just what you see on the surface level for people doesn't mean that that's who they are. We talk
Right.
about Instagram being people's highlight reel all the time. That can't be their real lives all the time. They're not showing you they're bad, just as people don't show you they're bad, you know, as celebrities out there and stuff. Like, some of them do. Some of them talk about real life stuff. But, like, all in all, people put these people on high pedestals thinking that they're perfect, and no one is perfect.
I'm perfect.
Well, I mean, you're an outlier, though.
True.
Yeah.
But going back to like what Megan was talking about with the media, like it's so crazy because you can see it nowadays, like where there's like 3 different media like news sources that are talking about the exact same topic
And how they word
and
something.
how
spinning
it's
it
all
different
in the way
ways.
they word it. Like
Yeah.
there's things where like they'll take a case that involves, you know, like a young kid, and they'll take his graduation picture and maybe he did something heinous, where otherwise it might be someone's mugshot that they're using and they like are just a victim. You know, it's crazy, like the pictures they use, the wording they use, it's all about how you spin it.
You can paint a picture very easily.
Yes.
Let me just say this, and we can go forward. You have to train yourself to think about these things, and you have to be smarter than what the media shoves in your face.
Well, and the thing too that people a lot of times will just, and I do this sometimes, but I don't like, and I'll say it though. Like I'm like, oh, well, I didn't read the article, but I read the title of it. And there's people that like they go by just the title, where I'm like, I don't really know anything about it because I didn't read the article, is what I say. But there's
Right.
people that they go off, they're like, I read this. No, you read the title of an article, and there was an article done by someone, like it was might have been like some news source, where they literally had the title be something crazy like divisive, and in the article it was talking about the fact that people don't read articles, they just read the titles and they have all these opinions about it. And so all of the comments were like talking about just the title of the article, proving them correct, that like not a lot of people read the articles.
I think that one of the perfect examples that I can compare this to is the news that came out that J.K. Rowling wrote 4 new books.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
She did not write 4 new books.
Yes.
They literally took information from the exhibit that she put on and created 4 books out of it. But everybody, I can't even tell you how many people messaged me, like
Yeah.
family, friends, were like,
Yeah.
oh my God, did you see J.K. Rowling's writing 4 new books? And I was so tired of it. Like after the 4th text message, I finally just responded to everybody and was like, no, she didn't, but thanks for telling me. Like,
Well-
she didn't write 4 new books. Like,
And do you remember when
read
the,
the article, the title said that, not the article. If you read the article,
Yeah.
it explained what they were.
Yeah.
The Fantastic Beasts movie's coming out. They're like, you're getting a new Harry Potter movie. No, we're not.
Yeah, we're not.
Like
not
it's
Harry
Wizarding
Potter.
World. It's not Harry
You're
Potter.
getting something by Joe.
Yeah.
You could say that.
That's more than these
Or
books.
even like when Cursed Child came out and they're like, she wrote a new thing. Well, she didn't. She helped write it, but she didn't write it.
Right.
And it's not a book, it's a
It's a
screenplay.
play. And everyone's like, it's a book. It's a book. I'm like, no, it's a play. There's a difference.
It reads as a play.
And then like
Right.
other people, when they talk about, well, did you read the Fantastic Beasts books? Those are screenplays. They're not books.
I personally think that had she, if she ever would, probably not, but if she takes her play and turns it into a novel, I
It'll
think
be
more
really
people,
good.
more people would be more
Well,
on board.
Well, it's
Oh,
more
yeah,
accessible
dude.
because unfortunately, going to see a show like that, any show, whether it's in New York or in Cleveland or wherever they have playhouses, they're expensive. And so some people just can't afford it, which is
Especially 2
unfortunate.
parts.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Um,
a lot. Of money.
Yes.
Travel, tickets, hotel, food while you're
Yeah.
there. Like it adds
Yeah.
up real fast.
Like
People
even
who
in
live in that
Cleveland.
city are lucky.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and there's
Yeah.
not.
I bet it'll come to Cleveland at some point.
They had to renovate the whole theater though.
That's fine.
I know, but
I
don't know
bet.
if
I bet they
Cleveland-
won't though. I
But-
bet they won't. If it goes out, they'll do other things.
I think that they would record it as a live movie instead, and not necessarily
Oh, you
tour.
think?
So, like
Yeah.
puffs, basically.
Yeah.
I think that's what they would do.
Let me read what Eddie said from the Discord chat, and then we gotta go.
Yeah.
Critical thinking is one of the most important modern skills, I think.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
agree.
I agree.
Okay, so let's move on. Ron has a moment, and here we're gonna get more heated again. And I said I want to curse, referring to Madame Maxime. We never thought of her, did we? Said Ron slowly. Mind you, she's definitely got giant blood, and she doesn't want to admit it. And then Hermione goes, "Of course she doesn't," said Hermione sharply, looking up. "Look at what happened to Hagrid when Rita found out about his mother. Look at Fudge jumping to conclusions about her just because she's part giant. Who needs that sort of prejudice? I'd probably say I had big bones if I knew that that's what I would get for telling the truth."
This is why I think Ron and Hermione are perfectly paired, and people can fight me on it. But this right here, this is what like
These
this
are checks and balances in
exactly.
a relationship.
Like, and people say like, oh, Ron is like, I've literally heard people say this. Ron is too dumb for Hermione. She would never marry
he's
him.
not
He's
dumb.
not dumb.
And I don't mean to yell, but it's so aggravating because he's not dumb.
I know.
He's so not. And why don't people understand that literally opposites do attract?
Yes.
They do.
They really,
I mean,
really
honestly,
do.
look at Katie and I. We're very similar. We have a lot of
Commonalities.
commonalities, and a lot of like our hobbies are the same.
Your
But
personalities
if you look at our
totally different.
personalities,
Totally different.
nothing alike.
Katie's like,
Total.
True.
And that's an example. She's nodding next to me, and I'm like screaming it into a microphone. Like, it's like it is, and like I feel like that's Ron and Hermione. Neither one of us. We are both smart people. Just because I talk more doesn't mean Katie doesn't have a mind of her own. It doesn't mean, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people say that about Katie and I. Like, oh, Katie just goes with whatever Megan says. Oh, Megan just makes the decisions for them. Like,
you're just more vocal.
Exactly.
I just vocalize
We talk
it.
about it behind the scenes.
Exactly.
And then
And,
she's
like-
the one that puts it out into the world.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I already agree, but people are like, oh, well, it must have been Meg's idea.
Exactly. Like, it drives me nuts. But, like, I feel like that is the same thing with Ron and Hermione.
Yeah.
People probably say the same thing, like, oh, Hermione just controls him or something like that. You know what I mean? But, like, in the background, I feel like they are the perfect pair. And this her totally calling out.
Right, her.
Yeah.
That's
Did
right,
I Did I really say her?
Yes.
That's right, her.
Literally didn't mean to. But this right here is like the perfect example of Hermione calling out his prejudice and being like,
Yeah.
and just kind of like not even like yelling at him, but clearly making it a point and being like,
Well-
who needs that prejudice, Ron? You know
but
what I
too,
mean?
like I think that because she had the conversation with Hagrid, so her even coming in and saying this because she knows what it feels like to have hate. So she's like, why would anybody, like, I would say the same thing because
Yeah.
I've been through that. I've gotten hate letters just from someone writing an article about me.
Yep.
That wasn't true.
And Ron doesn't get it.
Correct.
He just doesn't get it.
He will.
And like that's the thing too. That okay, I have to go on a little whatever to
Soapbox.
talk about Ron.
Blah, blah, blah,
I
blah.
think that people forget because a lot of his great lines from the books are stolen and given to other people in the movies.
AKA Hermione.
Also, I
Most of the
think
time.
Harry said some of his lines as well. But you have to remember that he is a kid. Like, I'm not the same person I was when I was 14. He's going to grow up and he's going to learn from his mistakes. Like, there's things that I believed in when I was growing up that I don't believe in now.
1,000%.
Like, because you grow up, you learn, you change, and you become an adult. Like, he is a kid, and they're good together. Like Megan was saying, they balance each other out, and they're good for one another. When he says something, she's gonna say something back and be like, "How about we learn and we'll do this?" Yes.
And like Sarah knows me, like I had different thoughts in high school than I do now, and vice versa. Like everybody, like you think different things in high school, and then you grow up and you're put into the real world, and you're like, oh, this is correct. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm a really good example of that.
Vinny goes, "He's 14. I was pretty dumb with that age."
I was dumb at 14 too. Everybody
Most
was.
people are.
Yeah, because you're a kid.
Hermione, honestly, is like an exception. She's perfect.
Okay.
Oh.
No.
Everybody has faults, but he has a lot of room to grow, and he does.
Yeah.
And Hermione sees that, and I think that that's truly like they're good together because they were friends first.
Yeah. And I think that that's partially why Hermione becomes attracted to him, to be honest, because she sees his growth, and she was part of it.
You just have to like outgrow years of conditioning. You know.
For sure.
Well, and I think with his
happen
parents,
overnight.
like I know that there's some things that my mom has said, like growing up, that like aren't like politically correct, and I'll correct
Right.
her now. But like growing up, it was just something that she grew up with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the sayings
so it's something
and
you need
stuff.
to learn and be like, Mom, take a step back. I'm like, that's not how you should say things in that. Or she's not. She's not, and any like my mom loves everybody. Like she's not a mean person.
But it's just things
something
that they
she
grew up
with.
doing, and my mom
People
is the
don't
same
really
way.
think about
Yes.
the way phrases
Correct.
originated.
Correct.
And now that like my mom has me to like check and balance her with that, and like she realizes her mistake, and she'll be like, oh, you're right, I shouldn't have said that, or I should think about that before I say it. You know what I mean? And like she fixes it, and it's but yeah, again, I just think of my grandparents and like how they were, and that's like who raised my mom, and it's
Yeah.
like, well,
And honestly, our generation has to come out of things that we say as well.
yeah. Like I know that it's interesting for me because my mom has she's one of 9 kids. So to see how different all 9 of them are, even like what they believe in and like their political views, it's drastically different in 9 kids. And my mom, like my parents
Families
are like,
weird.
it's so odd because
Yeah.
they were all grown, like they all grew up together and like they all had the same parent. I mean, except for like probably my mom's oldest sibling and like her youngest. I think my aunt was out of the house by then. Oh, she definitely was because she had kids. But like, it's just interesting to see how different they are. But at the same time, they come together because they're a family, even though they disagree on a lot of things. They just don't discuss it because like they're just gonna fight. I mean, sometimes
It's a
they
lot
totally
of nature
do.
versus nurture. So, like, even though they grew up in the same place and they had that same nurture for such a long
Well,
time.
they've all had different experiences.
Yes, and they all went off into their own new environments, and depending on who your friends are and who you marry and who that family is and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
like it changes everything.
You're
know
a
what
product of your
also-
environment.
It also
Yeah.
makes me think of the time that has passed because your mom comes from such a large family. There's a lot of years in between them.
Mm-hmm.
And the growth of your grandma and grandpa
Mm-hmm.
maybe changed the way that they raised their
Yeah.
youngest set of children. You know
Oh,
what I'm
for
saying?
sure. Because like my mom is right smack dab in the middle. So her oldest is 10 years older than her, and then her youngest.
That's a
It's
that's
10
a
years.
decade of growth.
Yeah.
You know
so
what I mean?
there's
Yeah.
20 years roughly, because between my aunt Colleen and my uncle Neil, because he's the baby. So
Uncle Neil, I love
Uncle
him.
Neil.
Okay, well, let's go back into this.
Lots of talking.
So Hermione then snaps back into Hermione mode and says that they need to get practicing the impediment curse, so they all decide to get some sleep and start training up tomorrow. And then Harry sees Neville, and he thinks about how he was true to his word with Dumbledore. And I said, that's a good man, that Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't tell Ron and Hermione about Neville's parents. And Harry then tried a little empathy. He thought about what it would be like to have parents still living, but not able to recognize you. And he thought that Neville deserved a lot more sympathy than he did.
Mm-hmm.
How grown of an idea. I mean,
Right.
you literally have been through the ringer. Your parents have passed, and you still have enough empathy to think that this kid deserves more sympathy than you get. Like, I think that shows a lot about who Harry is as a person. And
Yeah, for sure.
I love him in that moment.
Can I go first?
I don't
Yeah,
care.
go
Okay.
ahead.
So I 1,000% agree with you, and I think that the way that Harry was raised, like he's always like thinking of other people. He very rarely thinks of himself.
He's also not 14 in his like mind age. You know what I
I mean, really, because like all of that, honestly, all that trauma is going to make you grow up a little bit,
Yeah.
you know. And it's just he's just such a nice guy. You know what I mean? Like he's always thinking of other people, and you know when anyone's like telling him like later on when Hermione is like saying like you can be our teacher and like he's done all these things. He's like whoa. He's like I'm not just some great guy. He's like I've had practice and a lot of it was just
Help.
dumb luck
Lot of
and
help, yeah.
all of this other stuff. And he's always like the type of guy that's gonna you know, it wasn't me. Like I'm not that great and you need this and thinking of other, in my opinion, I think.
I think too that this is a little bit of a call out to the fact that this could have been either of them.
Mm-hmm.
So like
Oh,
this is almost talking about the prophecy where it's like look at both of these children in these situations. They're different, but they both fit the prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we know what the prophecy is or know anything about it at this point, but like it's interesting to me that Joe gives us this background on Neville at this moment in time because we are nearing the end of this book, about to go into the book where we learn more about it. And I think that this is almost her little call out to be like, Neville's important too. And just like they're very different and they're in different situations, but at the same time they're very similar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think in this moment we see a lot of Hufflepuff out of Harry.
He has a lot of empathy.
Yeah. I said, first of all, I love Harry so much in this moment. He steps outside himself, and I think that's what people should do a lot more often.
Agreed.
Have some empathy and think of others and their feelings and situations. This is a 14-year-old character that can teach people so much. And we've talked about it already in this episode. I think that's what the series has done a lot for me. It took my ability to empathize because I was always an empathetic person, but the experiences that I've been through, it made me, I think, like a million times more empathetic in my life.
Like, and that's what I always try to do, especially like, say we're having a discussion on the podcast, and it's something that we all kind of agree on, like specifically, like in the what am I talking about? In the very beginning when we were like, we all hate Snape. And I'm like, okay, well, like, let's stop and think about it. Because there's times where, like, you need to take a step back and you have to think about it from a different perspective and think about it from someone else's view to really, truly be like, we're coming with our own perspective, like each one of us, even though at least the three of us kind of grew up similarly where we went to Catholic school and we have that as an experience of going to private school. And, like, all of these things that add up to, like, how we view the world. But you need to take a step back and think about how other people do it, because no two people are the same. We're all like snowflakes. We're all different.
We're all like snowflakes.
Yeah, aren't they all different?
They are.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
But how do we know? That's my question. Has anybody looked at every
Ask a
single
scientist.
snowflake?
Joe will not know, so don't dear Joe.
Dear NASA, tell me things. Are there
So,
aliens?
Then Harry has some feels. And I think this is where his mission, without actually knowing his mission, is clear to him. Quote, lying in the darkness, Harry felt a rush of anger and hate towards the people who had tortured Mr. and Mrs. Longbottom. He remembered the jeers of the crowd as Crouch's son and his companions had been dragged from the court by the Dementors. He understood how they felt. He remembered the milk-white face of the screaming boy and realized with a jolt that he had died a year later. It was Voldemort, Harry thought, staring up at the canopy of his bed in the darkness. It all came back to Voldemort. He was the one who had torn these families apart, who had ruined these lives.
It's really jarring to hear a 14-year-old come to that conclusion.
It's one person.
It is.
Yeah.
Yes, all of these people played a role, good or bad, but why did they do it? What made them decide to go and torture Mr. and Mrs. Longbottom? It was Voldemort.
One person being pumped up by one wickedly horrific ideal.
Power and immortality. Conquering death.
Yeah.
And conquering those who are weaker,
Yeah.
in your eyes. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
It just
It's
it gets
rough.
me. But like, what do you guys think of me like saying that? Like, he's getting his mission
Yeah.
without knowing his mission. You
Yeah.
know what
Like
I mean?
he almost is like starting to think he's like, I have to, because he realizes too with the vision that he had with his dream that Nagini, like, he's gonna get fed to Nagini. So it's almost like he's got all of these things in the back of his mind, and he's like, it all comes down to Voldemort, and he needs to be stopped. And he's like, I think because he's also been so affected by it, obviously, because like
Right.
all that stuff, he's gonna do it, not just for him but for everybody.
And I feel like had the Voldemort story and whatever not been there, maybe he would have still felt this way, because I feel like as a person, Harry knows that he wants to stand up for the little guy. And he, you know, for the longest time was the little guy, you know, and I think he would fight for other people.
Yeah. Like, I think that if he had a whole different upbringing, he would not be this. Like, say alternate universe
I
that
think he'd be more
Sirius
like
and
James.
Remus, 1,000% agree with you.
Okay.
Because if they raised him, like, say his parents still died, but Sirius and Remus raised him, more specifically Sirius, I like him, but at the same time, I don't think he'd be a great father.
I agree.
He would make another little
yeah.
James, and he
Yeah.
would have been like that kid strolling into school being like, what up, I'm Harry Potter, punch in the face, don't look at me. You know
But
what
I
mean?
feel like Lily would also like check him so much.
But if they were dead,
And it was just Sirius.
and it was
it was
Sirius.
just Sirius,
I'm sorry.
like just Sirius,
I
and
thought-
like if Remus was there too, kind
But
of thing.
Remus
Like Remus
would have
might
been the
checked
Lily.
him, but I don't think he would have checked him as
How
much because he's still.
cute.
It would
He's
have been
still-
really cute.
Wolfstar
hung out
raising
with them.
Harry.
Do you get what I'm saying? Like he still
Yes.
hung out with them. He was the Marauders. Like
Yeah.
as much as he was like out of the four of them being like, come on guys, we shouldn't do this. He was also like, yeah, we should. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. To be young. But anyways. Ron and Hermione were supposed to be studying for their exams, which would take place on the day of the third task. But, like the amazing friends that they are, they were helping Harry train instead. And I think that says a lot about Hermione.
Oh, yeah. I mean, let's be honest. She already knew that stuff months
Yeah,
ago.
but she thinks that she needs to go, you know,
Yes.
crazy with study schedules and stuff.
Go crazy, go crazy, go crazy.
This is like a throwback to Sorcerer's Stone when she said like books and cleverness, they're a more important things.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
she thinks
This
Harry's life is
is-
clearly more
Yes.
important than exams right now.
This
so.
is the more important.
And
Yep,
this is
you're
her
so right.
growing as well. They're all growing.
Oh, look at us.
Oh.
Mentally, physically, spiritually growing.
I'm growing. What's that from?
I don't know.
It's from something. Anyway. Hermione looks at the bright side of things and says that their defense against the dark arts grades will probably be great because of all the training they've done. And Ron said that it's good training for when they're all Aurors.
He's like, we're all going to be Aurors. He didn't tell me that, but I know.
I'm going to be one too. But he's getting pretty good at the impediment curse because a wasp buzzed into the room and Ron made it stop dead in midair.
Oh, very cool.
Good job, Ron.
But wasn't Ron an Auror for a very short
Yeah.
period
Yeah.
of
He
time?
wasn't very...
Yeah. He was.
And then he was
After
he's a
2
stay-at-home
years
dad,
as
right?
an Auror, he went to work at Weasley's Wizard Wheezes with his brother George.
Oh, why did I think he was like a stay-at-home dad?
Well, he was home
That's
more
a
than
song.
Hermione whenever she was
Stay-at-home
minister.
dad. Sorry.
And you know what? Let me soapbox this for a second. Dads don't babysit; they're just dads.
Yes.
Agreed.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with him being the one to stay home. Not that,
No,
like, because we
preach.
talked about this. I think talking about cursed child with Ron watching, like, not watching, but like staying home with his kids more often. Like, not to say that Hermione's not like a mothering figure, but I think that they knew what their roles were going to be, you know? Like, he would stay home, or he seems like the more of a homebody type anyways, and she's very much like likes what she does. And I think that's great that they showed that.
I agree.
Yeah. They make it work. It's cool.
It doesn't say anything about him being a stay-at-home dad on the wiki, but it
I just think because he was just home more, because, you know,
Right.
she's especially now that she's the Minister of Magic,
agreed.
she's just busy, which is fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, if Ron's helping to run the joke shop, the joke shop's very successful, so they clearly probably have other employees there, so he doesn't have to be there all the time.
And he probably can, he obviously, as I'm assuming, like, now he's co-owner with, because it's the wizard that, you know what I
Weasley
mean?
wizard.
Yes. So it's him and George.
Right.
And so if he needed a day off, George isn't going to be like a Richard and be like, no, you can't have it off. You know what I mean? He's just going to be like, all right, I'm taking a half day here. Or like if Rose was sick or Hugo, something happened to him, he's like, all right.
Yeah, for sure.
It says here, instead of completing his education, he moved on to become an Auror at the Ministry of Magic alongside Harry Potter. Their work at the Ministry revolutionized the Auror department, and along with Hermione, the trio helped make a new world for the wizarding community. 2 years after he started at the Auror office, he left to help his brother George at Weasley's Wizard Wheezes in Diagon Alley. His decision to do so was questioned by Rita Skeeter, who thought that Ron was tired of standing in Harry's shadow, and wrote in her gossip column that Ron was likely mentally ill.
Oh my gosh.
Get out of here, Rita.
Yeah.
I think that
Having said himself that the Horcrux hunt had took its toll on him.
it probably did though.
Obviously.
But I think that with Ron, like he probably would help like out George whenever he could. And then it probably got like a booming business. And then George was like, you know, I could really like, what do you think about this? You know?
Yeah.
And for Ron, you know, family is everything. I don't know why that makes me want to cry.
Family.
No, like just the Weasleys. I enjoy their faces, you know?
Yeah.
And they've been through a lot.
Yeah, they have. All right. Okay, so as June approached, so this is her kind of just speeding up time a little bit. The castle mood was excited and tense. And cool enough, this is the most confident that Harry felt before a task because he was actually practicing hexes and spells. And Moody was right. How many tasks like this had Harry successfully finished already? And then I said, I wonder why this is the third and final task. It's the easiest for Harry. I think this was definitely done on purpose.
For sure. It's also easy, you know, the task is an easy thing to be able to hide things.
Correct.
And, you know, do tricks and trades and all that
It
stuff.
is a very easy place for Moody to be able to make things disappear
So do
and
we-
make it
Manipulate
easier for
things.
him.
Do we think Moody was manipulating Crouch Senior when creating the task?
Yeah,
But I would think
so.
that these tasks were created way before
Do you think?
I would have. Because, like,
It
I
just
don't
seems very
think-
convenient.
But think about how much planning goes into this stuff.
yeah, but he could be putting
Maybe he
little
was doing
buds
it-
of information in his head.
Maybe he was doing it before he even got out. Like, planning it in his
Probably
dad's
because
head.
he's been in the house.
Yeah.
Dude, you
I think he
guys- when you
definitely
think about
played a
that,
role.
like that's
It's really messed. It's messed. The whole situation's messed up.
It's crazy.
yeah.
He definitely played a role somehow because this really is super convenient.
Correct.
So McGee was tired of walking in on the trio practicing in empty classrooms, so she gave them permission to use the Transfiguration classroom at lunchtimes. And
Why
I said,
is she walking into them on classrooms? Like, why are you going
she's
into random
probably
classrooms?
patrolling?
Or looking for people snogging.
Why would you- that was such a waste of time.
What? Looking around or snogging in a classroom?
That's just like I don't know. Because
What-
as a
which
teacher,
one?
no, walking around looking for people snogging, like that is such a waste of time.
Do you
Like,
want little wizard babies at your school?
Yeah, they're cute.
Oh my god.
No, but honestly, like as a teacher, I just feel like this is just one more thing that they load up on teachers and expect them to do.
But like it's different though. Like your students don't live there.
Right.
Hire other people.
I don't think that's up to her.
Do you think that her like interfering and giving him an empty classroom is technically against the Triwizard rules?
Do you think she cares?
Well,
No, but I'm just
there's
wondering.
No, but,
probably
like-
a room in the carriage, and there's probably a room on the ship.
Agreed. Because
Probably.
think about all of the cheating they've done up till now.
True.
This is the
They don't-
least amount of cheating, if it's cheating.
Rules? What are rules?
I mean, I don't think that it matters. He does need a place to practice regardless. So, but Harry had perfected the impediment curse, reductor curse, and the 4-point spell, which is a discovery of Hermione's.
How convenient.
I think that's amazing, though.
No,
She
it's-
just discovered this.
Wait, she like created it?
It says it was a discovery of Hermione's.
Did
that-
she discover it
I
in
would.
the book?
I would. That's what I would think.
I don't think so. That's not what it made it sound like.
Give me
I just
thoughts,
spilled coffee on
listeners. Give me
myself.
thoughts.
I think she found it in a book. I don't think she's making up
I
stuff
think that's
yet.
a lie.
What you doing,
Ha!
Megan?
Vinny goes. You don't discover spells. You invent them.
I'm saying all the people in the Discord chat are incorrect.
Whoa.
So it says on the lexicon, the 4-point spell is a simple spell performed with the wand laying flat on the open palm of the caster. When the words are spoken, aka the words are "point me," the wand rotates to point north. In effect, the wand becomes the arrow of a compass, which is cool.
This is cool.
Very
It's
cool.
very useful.
So-
Go
Hold
ahead.
on. Talking about the 4-point thing. This is how much of a
The
nerd I
faux
am.
point.
So like on your phone, at least on iPhones, they have a compass. So when we were in Aruba, we were on. We took a little sunset cruise, and Jen and I were talking about like the island because it's not crazy big, and talking about like where it was in connection to South
don't wanna download
America.
it.
And we literally, I like pulled out my phone, like did the compass because we're like, okay, so that's north, and the like I think Venezuela is like right next to us, like on Aruba. I'm like, there's Venezuela over there, and she's like, we're cool. That's what it reminds me
I didn't
of.
know there's a compass. I don't want to put it on there, but
It just comes on your phone.
I said I had to download from cloud.
Oh, weird.
That's weird.
I probably
so
deleted it.
the impediment curse. I like on the lexicon they put references from the canon in here, so like when we see it.
Ooh.
So the first time that we see it is now when he's learning this spell to use it in the third task. Ron also learns it, using it to stop a bee in midair. So Harry does end up using it on an acromantula and a blast-ended screw in the maze. Madam Hooch uses this to knock Harry away from Draco as they were fighting after a Quidditch match in Order of the Phoenix. Harry teaches Dumbledore's army this. Harry saw his father use this on Snape in the Pensive. The impediment jinx was used by Death Eaters and by Harry during the Battle of the Department of Mysteries.
Yeah.
Harry uses this on Inferi in the cave. Harry uses this on Amicus Caro while the latter was dueling Ginny during the Battle of the Tower. That is when he saves Ginny's life.
Who's he?
Hashtag Mary.
Harry.
Harry.
Later, Harry casts it on either Amicus or Electo. We're not sure when they tried to catch him from behind, and still later he attempted to cast it on Snape. It was cast by Harry on a Death Eater just after the sidecar he was riding in broke off the flying motorbike in Deathly Hallows. So I thought that was neat.
That's a lot. And
Yeah.
then when you go to like Reducto, like all I think of is like Ginny training in the movie.
Yes.
Reducto.
Yeah, and then the little Death Eater thing, like.
Yeah.
Obliterates.
So speaking of the Reductor Curse, they do the same thing here. The first time that we see it, Snape uses this on the rose bushes at the Yule Ball after his talk with Karkaroff.
That's some over dramatic stuff there.
I agree.
Yeah, can't you just move it?
Then
Move-o.
he uses it as part of his preparation for the third task, and he uses it to blast a hole in the hedge whenever, because he like does
in the
it.
head. I was like, oh god.
No, he uses it in the maze to like just go through instead of like the maze. He'll just like blast a hole
You
in
can't go over it.
Cheetah.
You can't go around it. You have to blast through it.
the. The reductor curse is again used during Dumbledore's army training. It reduces the table to dust, and it's used by various Dumbledore's army members at the beginning of the Battle of the Department of Mysteries to smash shelves in the Hall of Prophecy as a diversion. But then we
Oh my
don't see it
God,
again.
All those prophecies.
It was just
Yeah.
thinking the same
Oh.
thing.
Gosh. Not that I think, because here, I'm the type of person where, like, I won't go to a psychic because I don't want to know.
It's weird.
That's how I am.
I'm not saying that's right for everybody, but it's
Right.
just, like, it's just, I don't want to know. I don't know.
Well,
I don't
and
know
there's some people
why.
that just don't believe in it, which is fine too.
True, but, like, all those prophecies, if people wanted to know, wanted to look them up, what is it said? Like,
Gone forever.
what's the future going to be like? Is there stuff about
Sorry.
after Voldemort or other people coming around? Come on,
Yeah.
meow.
I see another story.
I'm just saying.
One of the Smash prophecies come true.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Because they're still going to happen.
yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, I'm sure that it starts to build up again.
Yeah,
The Hall of
Yeah, but
just
Prophecy.
the
like
old
breaks
one.
my
all those
heart.
ones are
I know.
gone.
I'm the kind of person that, like, history.
Do you not throw
Yes.
anything away?
No, I throw stuff away. But
She
like
means, like,
historical
history.
things,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the history behind it, like what was the cathedral that was burning?
Notre Dame. Oh my God, I cried.
It was very upsetting.
Sad.
It is because
Like-
like think about how old that
And
wood
it's-
is and who touched that wood.
It's
You know what
beautiful.
I mean? Like
And the art,
it broke my heart. Yeah, the
And-
art,
and even just reading on it,
the
they're like
books that I'm sure were there.
they can't go up there because they're like they still might fall. Like
it-
they don't know yet. They're like they won't know until the end of the year probably if they can even
Like, what they can use.
Yeah, like and
like
because they might
even,
the whole thing still might fall.
like separate religion from it completely. The history of it.
And I can't tell you how
Ugh.
gorgeous that church was when I got to go see it.
You're lucky.
It was beautiful.
So sad.
Yeah, I cried.
I went to Disneyland Paris instead of going to see it.
Well, that's a sad one. We didn't.
So,
Well, no one can guess that
I
something
know.
terrible like that's going to happen.
no
Yeah.
regrets. I love Disneyland Paris.
Yeah.
It's fine.
No regrets.
Okay. So he perfected those 3 spells, but he was having trouble with the shield charm, which is what they were practicing now. So the
Shields up.
The shield charm has a little bit of history, which I thought was neat.
Do it.
In
History.
1484, in the town of Poppleton, the tyrannical Earl of Paunchley held a jousting match.
That's a lot of words.
He insisted that all the nobles for miles around must come to cheer him on at the tournament, and no excuse would be acceptable for missing the event.
Come to my party.
I have no friends. You must come or I will kill you.
We're only eating brioche buns.
But young Edmund Gattlegate fell out of a tree that day and broke his leg, and his mother put him to bed. The Earl wouldn't hear of anyone staying home, so he dragged Edmund and his mother to the castle and said the mother had to watch while her child was tied to a horse and forced to compete in the jousting.
Oh my gosh.
The other knights left the tournament in disgust at the idea of jousting with a small injured boy, so the Earl vowed that he himself would attack Edmund. But a witch in the crowd named Hannah Cockleford had other ideas.
These names are so much.
I
It's
know.
like they go like we'll just put a bunch of words into a hat. We'll pull 2 out and that's their last name.
Isn't that what I
Fed up with the evil Earl, she cast an extremely strong shield charm between Edmund and the Earl, who was squashed flat in his armor when the shield charm knocked him backwards and his horse landed on him. The Earl of Paunchley did not die, but when he came to, he was under the impression that he was a donkey named Harry Cyril.
Harry's a seer?
Yeah.
Jesus, shield charm's
I
so
was like,
strong.
oh wait, so she murdered him? But no, okay.
Oh,
It
wait.
we're
says
fine.
that that's from BOS. What does that stand for?
Beads of, not Bard.
I don't know.
BOS.
Crumbs of
Bob's
Hufflepuff.
of shorts.
Oh my god.
I have to look that up. But anyway,
Wait,
there
are
are
we gonna feel really dumb when we're like, what?
Probably.
probably. Oh, Book of Spells.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
That's a game, isn't it?
It is a game, but that's a cool story, and I thought that it was neat.
That is neat.
So some references from canon with shield
No.
charms. I'm not going to read all these because it's long. What?
I just didn't want to listen. I'm just kidding.
Sarah.
I thought that this was cool. When Credence Barebone forms into an Obscurus after the killing of Irma Dugard, Grimson protects himself with a domed shield charm. The
That had to be
Obscurus
pretty
attacks
strong.
the dome but is unable to break it. That was like one of the coolest scenes to see.
Super sad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I love how Megan's like, it's super cool, and Sarah's like, it's super sad.
Well, I mean, it's cool and sad.
I agree.
Also, there are several versions of the incantation. So, Protego Totalum, or Protect Everything, was used by Hermione to protect when they were camping in Deathly Hallows.
How straightforward. Protect everything.
Yeah. Protego Horribilis, loosely translated as Protect from the Horrible, casts a protective shield over a wide area, as Flitwick did, using a strong wind to carry it at the Battle of Hogwarts.
Did he conjure a wind?
I guess, maybe.
He's a charms master. He can
Is
do what
he
he
an
wants.
airbender?
Seriously cool.
And then again, so like Goblet of Fire is the first time that we hear about this charm, and then it is used a ton throughout the book. So we see it in Order of the Phoenix. Harry uses it to defend himself against Snape's legilimency when he's training for occlumency. We see it in Half-Blood Prince. The class practiced silent shield charms. That was with Snape. Deathly Hallows. Ron, grasping at straws, speculates that Moody could have used a shield charm against the killing curse, but then Hermione is like, Ron, you can't do that.
Trying to see the best in situations.
Cast by Remus Lupin, Nymphadora talks and various other wedding guests after Shacklebolt delivered his warning, so they're trying to protect the wedding.
Dude,
But-
that moment gave me such chills.
Yeah.
Were they
And then
multiplying?
it's cast a handful of times again during Deathly Hallows. And then Cursed Child. Scorpius Malfoy discusses with Professor Snape, Hermione Granger, and Ron Weasley what spells he and Albus Potter had used to change time so they can be in reversed, both by using the shield charm. So that was how they were going to undo what they did.
Cursed Child Snape is such a good person.
He's good. All right. So while they're practicing shield charms, they spot Malloy, or Malfoy.
Oi, Malloy!
I was like, who's Malloy?
Oi, Malloy!
Hello, Malloy.
Sounds like Doodle Bob.
So they spot him out the window, and he's on the grounds, and Crabbe and Goyle are keeping a lookout for him. He is underneath a tree, in the shade of a tree, as they say in the book, and was holding his hand up to his mouth, speaking to it. And Harry says it looks like he's using a walkie-talkie, and Hermione, again, gets all upset because Hogwarts of history, Harry. You can't use them here. Magic interferes.
I'm being a Richard. That's what he was saying into his palm.
I thought he was going to be like, you're doing okay, buddy. We're fine. We're doing all right.
Over and out.
We have to get Harry Potter. We have to be more like Harry Potter.
Over and out, Rita. Over and out. Oh.
What
So
if he
they had...
accidentally kissed the beetle.
What if he ate it? So let's say someone accidentally swallows the beetle and then she
my
dies. Would she like expand and then
God.
you'd both die in her
Oh
stomach?
my god.
You are
I
gross,
can't handle
Swan.
you.
But real thoughts. I need to know.
Or like, what if a dog accidentally picks her up and eats it?
Good riddance.
Like, what if he like goes "Ugh," and bites it, and then there's a dead Rita in his mouth? But is that what happens? Would she die if she got squashed as a beetle?
She would die.
You think so?
Yeah.
I legitimately want to know.
I think she would.
Dear Joe, this is serious.
So they have no idea what Malfoy's doing, and they don't really talk about it much more beyond the fact that they see him out there using what looks like a walkie-talkie. So Sirius was sending daily owls now, and he wanted Harry to focus on the last task and not worry about anything else. He reminded Harry in every single letter that what was going on outside of the Hogwarts walls was not his responsibility.
Speak
Yeah.
for yourself, sir.
Right. And then I wanted to read
No.
his one letter. If Voldemort is really getting stronger again, he wrote, my priority is to ensure your safety. He cannot hope to lay hands on you while you are under Dumbledore's protection, but all the same, take no risks. Concentrate on getting through that maze safely, and then we can turn our attention to other matters. That's all I got.
Serious being a dad again.
See, like, it's moments like that where I'm like, no, he is a good dad. But then I can also
think-
see him being like,
It would have been, everybody would have been different though. If in
Yeah.
an alternate universe,
True.
the Potters were still killed, but Sirius didn't go to jail and he raised Harry.
Okay.
Because I mean, I think he wouldn't be as like crazy. Not he wasn't crazy in school, but like he wouldn't be that serious. You know, he would be the new Sirius, but still not as serious as the Sirius. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Who's the serious?
Okay, so June 24th is getting closer and closer, and Harry is getting nervous, but as Meg said, he's much more confident this time. He's not nearly as nervous as he was before the first and second tasks, because he's literally done everything in his power to prepare this time. This was also the final task, so whether he did really good or really bad, it was going to be over soon, and that was an enormous relief to him. Not going to be over. That's kind of how I get through things. If I'm really nervous about something, I'm like, well, you know what? It's going to come to a time where I have to do what I have to do, and I'm going to feel great afterwards because it's over. So just get through it.
It's like when you work out and it's like this last 10 minutes is just 5 minutes 2 times.
I do that all the time.
Oh, you know what I do? I'll be like, okay, so something's happening, and say it's like an hour and a half. I'm like, okay, that's like a short-ish movie, or it's like 3 shows because a show's like 30 minutes, you know?
Right, right.
I go back to like college and think about how in college, like for mine and Katie's major, we had these big reviews that would happen, and like leading up to those reviews was literally like the worst nerves you would ever experience. And then I remember the day of junior review, which is the one you had to do it in person, which was terrifying. You had to like have all of your all of your work laid out and like be there to answer any questions. But like 9 times out of 10, they would just walk in there silently, look at everything, and like say thank you and leave. So you're just kind of like standing there like an idiot. But I just remember before going into it being like, in 15 minutes, this is going to be over. And it was just like, that is how I got myself to walk into that room.
Mm-hmm. You got to psych yourself up to these things sometimes.
So scary. Because like they would like fail you.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm aware. I failed the first time. Actually, it was a different one, but whatever. It was all for the best. So during breakfast, Harry gets a good luck card from Sirius. It's a little piece of paper folded in half, and it has a muddy paw print on the front.
Love it.
So cute.
Love it.
So
I love it.
an owl brings Hermione her daily morning copy of the Daily Prophet, and she reads the headline and spits out her mouthful of pumpkin juice. And she tries to hide it from the boys, but Ron grabs it, and he's like, "No way, not today, that old cow." So of
Not
course,
today!
Have you guys ever done a spit take on anything?
Yeah,
I don't
you
think I've ever
multiple
spit anything
times.
I've
You
wanna
never.
hear
Well, yeah. I
Want
guess
to hear a
maybe
funny
I have.
story? When I was kids.
When you were kids.
When I was kids. When I was a kid, I remember being at my cousin's house. He actually, well, you don't know where my cousin Emily lives, but he used to live over there. So we would sit, like his dad had a truck, and we would used to pretend like we'd have like water or juice with us. And we'd tell not funny jokes, but like we thought they were funny, and did fake spit takes. So like I would tell a joke and he'd have a mouthful of water and he'd go like purposely spit
that's such a kid thing. I love it.
Oh my gosh.
But also not today, Satan.
Not today, old cow. And like clearly now Harry's gonna need to know, but they're both like trying to hide it from like, oh, it's nothing, it's nothing. But it didn't matter
Liars.
anyway, right? Because Malloy across the hall
Oi, Malloy.
was shouting across to Harry and saying, "How's your head? Are you gonna go berserk on us?" So Harry's like, "Just you have to give me the paper now. I have to read it." So reluctantly, Ron hands it over, and I'm gonna read the article. So Harry Potter, disturbed and dangerous. The boy who defeated he who must not be named is unstable and possibly dangerous, writes Rita Skeeter, special correspondent. Alarming evidence has recently come to light about Harry Potter's strange behavior, which casts doubts upon his suitability to compete in a demanding competition like the Triwizard Tournament, or even to attend Hogwarts School. Potter, the Daily Prophet, can exclusively reveal, regularly collapses at school, and is often heard to complain of a pain in the scar on his forehead, relic of the curse with which you know who attempted to kill him. On Monday,
You who must not be named.
that's what I was gonna say.
I know.
On Monday last, midway through a divination lesson, your Daily Prophet reporter witnessed Potter storming from the class, claiming that his scar was hurting too badly to continue studying. It is possible, say top experts at St. Mungo's Hospital for Magical Maladies and Injuries, that Potter's brain was affected by the attack inflicted upon him by you-know-who, and that his insistence about insistence that the scar is still hurting is an expression of his deep-seated confusion. He might even be pretending, said one specialist. This could be a plea for attention.
Ugh.
The Daily Prophet, however, has unearthed worrying facts about Harry Potter that Albus Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts, has carefully concealed from the wizarding public. Potter can speak Parseltongue, reveals Draco Malfoy, a Hogwarts fourth year. There were a lot of attacks on students a couple years ago, and most people thought Potter was behind them after they saw him lose his temper at a dueling club and set a snake on another boy. It was all hushed up, though, but he's made friends with werewolves and giants, too. We think he'd do anything for a bit of power. Parseltongue, the ability to converse with snakes, has long been considered a dark art. Indeed, the most famous Parselmouth of our times is none other than you-know-who himself. A member of the Dark Force Defense League, who wished to remain unnamed, stated that he would regard any wizard who could speak Parseltongue, quote, as worthy of investigation. Personally, I would be highly suspicious of anyone who can converse with snakes, as serpents are often used in the worst kinds of magic, and we historically associated with evildoers. Similarly, anyone who seeks out the company of such vicious creatures as werewolves and giants would appear to have a fondness for violence. Albus Dumbledore should surely consider whether a boy such as this should be allowed to compete in the Triwizard Tournament. Some fear that Potter might resort to the dark arts in his desperation to win the tournament, the third task of which takes place this evening.
When you said from the article that snakes are used in the worst kinds of magic or whatever, it makes me think of what they did with Bathilda in 7.
It also makes me think about what they did with Nagini, potentially. Because, like, we know that Nagini has a blood curse and that she wasn't always just a snake. Like, I know that...
I'm so curious of her story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and, like, I know
It's
that
gotta be wild.
she obviously, like, had the blood curse and, like, they couldn't have done something to make her stay a snake. That was just her fate, unfortunately. But, like,
Right.
what made her decide to come to Voldemort? You know?
Yeah.
That's what
I
makes
wonder
me...
if he schmoozed her.
Well, I
I
think that's
mean,
part of it,
in
but I
Albania,
also,
you know,
I think
Yeah.
that, like, you know, she's now like a human trapped in a snake's body, and she's finally able to communicate
it's your
with
last
someone.
resort. You gotta
So
cling
it
to whatever
makes
you have.
feel good.
Makes
Yeah,
you feel
and
wanted.
I-
and, stuff. And I mean,
that's a song.
He-
But I agree.
he doesn't treat her like
Bad.
No, and I
bad.
think that's part of it too.
he even
is that
treats her better than he treats like Bellatrix.
I agree.
And far as treating Death Eaters goes, he
But I
treats her
think
pretty well.
because she's more dangerous. Like, she's able to slither in
She's
places and, like,
powerful.
yes, and
Oh,
like
yeah.
get and like, you know, think of how she can strike. She lasted so many years, you know. Not
Yeah,
saying that
for sure.
Bellatrix didn't, but one
Yeah,
fell
Nagini
swoop
is
of a
pretty
sword.
old. If you think about it.
Yeah, she's older than him.
She is older than him.
Yeah.
She's
Mhm.
way older than him.
Well, I wouldn't say way, maybe 20 years.
That's a lot older.
I mean, I
a
guess.
20 years is a lot.
I guess. Not in this lifespan of Earth.
Voldemort
but
was
No,
70,
but
so that would
still.
put her at 90.
at least.
Right.
Also, I never
Sucks
thought
to
of this
suck,
before, but you know, I'm just going to say it before I forget because I'll forget in a future chapter. But you know how, so Voldemort was possessing like small creatures like rats or snakes or whatever, mostly
Maybe he
snakes.
tried to possess her.
But she became a part Horcrux, right? And that speaks a lot that she's strong enough to still be
Mhm.
an
Alive
animal,
as
but
well.
part Horcrux. And
Because she's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
really an animal, I
Yeah.
think.
yeah.
Do you think he possessed her and then tried and then like figured out this is not a snake?
Yeah.
That's probably what happened. He probably
Ooh.
tried to, and he was like, "Whoa, someone else is in here. Sorry. Hey, sorry, I didn't knock on the door.
No vacancy.
He's like, yuck,
I didn't know that was that funny.
Oh, that was.
Oh, occupied.
I like what Eddie said in the chat. This is setting things up so well for the general public to not believe Harry that Voldemort's back in book
You
Yes.
know what, Eddie? I was
Oh.
just about to say that because this Rita started the rumor mill.
Yeah.
But it's all
And I
about how
wonder-
media
yes.
goes back to media. We'll have to do a Felix Files.
But
on
that would be good. But I really believe that Rita almost feels bad for what she does here because then she tries pretty hard later to
In the most Rita way possible.
right, but she does try later on to be like, you know, to write for Harry, not for Harry, but she does try to bring the public to believe that Voldemort is back, you know, and
Yeah.
like
Well,
writes about that stuff.
I think, like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, she's
she
not.
writes about what is going to get read the most.
Well, but like, she's not the most garbageous person. Like, there are worse people in the world than her. Is she a Slytherin? Did we discuss? Did we know that? Because she's very ambitious and cunning, and like with her, she's very about her self-preservation and how she's going to become the big name and get all of the money. I think that she, at the end of the day, like, if Voldemort is coming back, she doesn't want him to come back either because she wants to survive and knows what it was like in the first Wizarding Wall. And so she realizes that she did some damage to Harry's credibility with all of her articles and all of those things. So now she, like you said, is like backtracking and being like, no, this is like a real threat and all that other stuff. But also there's also people out there that are like, don't believe anything that Rita says.
Right.
She's a gossip columnist.
Well, at first
she's
that's
a
what you
pot stirrer.
say, you know? Like,
Yes.
you got to
Cauldron
go
stir.
from people
Yes.
thinking that you're part of the gossip mill to people trying to believe you. That's a hard thing to do.
Oh yeah, like you're flipping a 180. Like, why should I believe you now? You've been
Correct.
saying all these other things for years,
Mm-hmm.
and now all of a sudden, what? You're on their side? Why?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, Mikey.
So Quora, one of our favorite websites to use, had a really great
I'm sorry.
discussion about Rita's house.
Oh,
And-
gosh, sorry.
They say that for sure she's a Slytherin because the house values resourcefulness, ambition, intelligence, and determination. They strive to obtain what they desire by any means necessary, by hook or by crook. They are proud, they are master manipulators, and they don't care too much about the means, just the end. So, not just because... well, I don't like this sentence, but it says, yep, she was a Slytherin, not just because the fandom hates her and she's a negative character.
What?
Whatever. But because she was resourceful, determined, focused, ambitious, and striving to attain what she wanted, by hook or by crook.
You know what? I bet you that. So, totally random. Not really. But so Rita was born in 1951. And both Molly and Arthur were roughly born in 1950, like around then. So they all went to school together, but so did the Malfoys and the Blacks. So
Wasn't Rita and Bellatrix?
I want to say yes. So Bellatrix and Rita were in school together because
Yes.
Bellatrix was born in 1951 as well.
Yes.
Because Andromeda was born in 53 roughly, because she's in between Bellatrix and Narcissa, and then Narcissa was in 55, was born in 55.
I
Do
need
you
a
think-
story about all that.
Do you think Rita was tempted to be a Death Eater?
Good question.
You know what? I could see her being like one of those people that's like, which way is going to be like the top dog? But at the same time, because she wants to be on the winning side ish, like for self-preservation reasons. But at the same time, I could also see her just being like, no, this is wrong. I don't know.
Here's the thing. I don't think she ever wanted to be a Death Eater purely because I think that she wanted to become on her own. She didn't want to use the Death Eater platform to like become big. She wanted to do it on her own.
I also wonder if she actually believes in the things that she like writes
don't think
about
she
giants
always
and
does.
stuff. Like, do you really think she's like that
Oh.
prejudiced?
No.
She strikes me as like someone who like
She writes
Knows
for
what
views.
to say.
I mean,
Yes.
like she
Yeah.
writes like writers right now for clickbait. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
yes.
I'm
And
sure
I,
that
like, I
half
don't
of the
necessarily
people.
think she believes in the things that she writes. She
Right.
might. I don't know.
Can we make this episode clickbait? Sarah's literally leaving. She's never coming back.
Oh
Sarah's
my
gone.
No, do not do that. You're
But that's
crazy.
funny. Get it? Because we're talking about clickbait. And
You're
that's
gonna make
clickbait.
people be upset.
That's what clickbait is, Tiffany.
Yeah, we don't want to be part of that, Sarah. Love you.
You can finish your section, Katie.
Do you have more, Meg?
No,
Okay.
sorry.
So over at the Slytherin table, we have Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle, who were laughing at Harry. They're tapping their heads with their fingers, pulling grotesquely mad faces, and waggling their tongues like snakes.
They're
Meg,
so-
Get over yourself.
tell your
They
house to
are
calm down.
so waggling their tongue like
Their
their tails.
So Ron was like, well, how did Rita Skeeter know that your scar hurt? There's no way she was there. I was there with you or could have heard. And Harry's like, well, I had the window open so I could breathe because it's so freaking hot up there. And Hermione's like, you were at the top of the North Tower. There's no way your voice carried all the way down to the grounds. So Harry tells her, well, like, you're the one who's supposed to be researching magical methods of bugging.
Hint, hint, hint.
She's like, I've been trying, but. And then, like, this really odd look comes on her face.
Dreamy.
I feel
I
like
that
she's
word.
having one
Yeah,
of those
dreamy.
moments, like the
She's
guy from what's that show, Psych, where he has like
Yeah.
all these little flashes.
An odd, dreamy look comes on her face. Ron's like, are you okay? And she answers yes, breathlessly, and she keeps running her fingers through her hair. So she's, like, really, really thinking. And then she puts her hand up to her mouth like an invisible walkie-talkie. So I think she's trying to like think
it all through.
of Draco, yeah. And Harry and Ron are like, what's wrong with you? So
Oh, her running her hands through her hair is like when she was at the
Yes.
yes. Oh my God, good catch.
She's like, there was a beetle in my hair.
Good catch.
Yes.
Draco's talking into his hand.
Nice. So she says, I've had an idea, Hermione said, gazing into space. I think I know, because then no one would be able to see, even Moody. And she'd have been able to get onto the window ledge, but she's not allowed. She's definitely not allowed. I think we've got her. Just give me 2 seconds in the library just to make sure. And she dashes out of the hall.
Dun dun dun.
I love it.
Well, she find out, bro.
Mm-hmm.
You've been found out.
Oh my God, can you imagine?
You done did.
Her, like, oh my God, just the feeling of victory. Like,
Can you
I got her.
imagine? Hermione has run off, not probably, she definitely runs to the library. And she leaves the boys behind in the Great Hall. And then Ron comments that Hermione must really hate Rita if she's willing to risk missing the start of her final exam in History of Magic that starts in 10 minutes. So Harry's the freaking champ. Get it? And he doesn't have to take the final exams because he's legitimately exempt because he's the champ. But he's gets to be the cool kid in the back of the classroom just hanging out, watch people like freak out. Because he's like, I know I'm moving on. Bye.
I love that they still make him go to the exam. They're not
Yeah.
like, you can't just chill in the common room. You still got to
Yeah.
sit there and be a student.
Yeah,
Here's
you have
my
to-
thing with this,
Kinda
though.
weird.
As a teacher, like, I don't necessarily agree with this because what if, like, for most of the year he was, like, just skirting around and then you go to year 5 and you don't know the basics from year 4? You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
Like, I don't agree with them. Like, I get that being part of a champion, I feel like you should be able to hold the responsibility to be a champion and compete in the tasks as well as take your exams and continue your education.
yes.
Is Cedric 6th or 7th year?
This is the
Seventh.
7th.
So does he have to take his newts?
Oh. Well,
That's
it
kind of
doesn't matter for
important.
him, does it?
Well, no, that's different
Tiffany.
than final
No,
exams.
Yeah, because I think
Any
your newts-
WTs are different, just like OWLs were
How
different.
do
You know what I
get your
mean? Like,
gerb?
it's like that's like a standardized exam. You know what I mean? So like, and I feel like any WTs may have happened already at this
Those
point.
are from the ministry, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to my boy Ced for being a champ and taking newts.
Don't worry, he's gonna have a lot of rest soon.
Guys, shut up, all right? That's me. You and Tiffany both.
Sarah.
So
Like, I don't even know what the... Sarah.
Oh, Sarah.
This is
been
how
a-
she deals with things.
this is true because
She's a
otherwise I'd be
comedian.
crying a lot.
You're still gonna cry.
There were oh for sure there were things I wanted to say and now I don't remember them because they came out of my head.
Spilling out
So like
your
the
ears.
test, if you think about it, like I wonder like how teachers even feel about having like, you know, when you're done, like especially in college, like when you're done with the test you can leave
Yeah.
because they don't want like all of those extra people just hanging
Yeah.
out and chatting. So
Yeah.
why even have them in there?
I agree.
I also freaking love that. I hate when they're like, we're going to take the test first and then have class. No, do the test last so I can leave.
Right.
Because I'm typically a fast test taker. So I go.
I'm not.
I'm like the type of person that when you are taking a test, like if I don't know the answer, I'm not going to sit there and stare at it for 20 minutes because I'm not going to know the answer.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Just guess.
That
Yeah.
with like multiple choice tests and you like second guess yourself and it's usually always your first.
Yeah.
I've
guess
answered
that's
way
right.
too many A's.
You want to
Oh,
hear
no.
a funny story? So my mom in college took a class and they were talking about true or false tests, and they're always going to be. She's like, most of the answers they told her were going to be like true or false or something because they want you to like, because you know it's true or false. Although some now like.
Is it?
No.
Is
Like
there a
some,
third
like,
option I can pick?
What I'm saying is,
Maybe.
when I was in high school, I'd have teachers be like, and if it's false, tell me like the real answer. But back when she was in college, it was like it's either true or false, and they're like they don't want to give you false information, so most of the answers are going to be true. So my mom is not was not always a studious person. Like my mom is a very intelligent person, but like she's like I wouldn't say she struggles with book learning, but like back in college, she wasn't as great of a learner as she is now. And
Growing up, you start to
Oh
learn
my
differently.
gosh.
she learns in a different way. So she remembered this class, didn't study for this test, just circled true on every single one of the answers, and then was called into her teacher's office. And she's like, I know you don't know this information. She's like, but I know you didn't cheat, so I don't know. I can't give you anything less than 100, but I know that you didn't really earn it.
All of the answers were true?
Yep.
That's stupid.
Yep. And she just guessed. So she just wrote true on all of them. So
I
she
have
got
an issue with this.
She got 100%.
Give me a name to write to.
I mean, they're probably no longer with the living. 'cause
Whatever.
This was 37 years ago. But like, even my Aunt Kelly is a very intelligent person. People used to hate being in class with her because she'd blow the curve. Sorry, that's me
Sucks not to
knocking.
be Aunt Kelly.
She's very intelligent. And then my mom, so she's in her master's program to become a nurse practitioner. And she writes her papers on paper first. And it drives my mom crazy, which I'm like, oh, I do the same thing. I like writing. I like handwriting.
Oh, no. That is working harder, not smarter.
It helps me.
See, my thoughts are coming too fast. I need to type it.
See, I write faster
Otherwise,
than I
I'll
type.
forget them as I write. That's funny.
So they're about to leave, and McGonagall comes over to stop him, and she's like, hey, yo, Harry, all the champions are meeting in the Chamber of Not Secrets after breakfast. And Harry freaks out, spilling egg down his front, saying, but the task's not till tonight. She's like, dude, I know.
Dude, calm down.
So she informs him. She's like, I know when the task is, but the families of the champions are invited to watch the final task, and the champions are allowed to meet with them, with their family and everything after breakfast to spend some time with them before they, go to the task and all that stuff.
Potentially die.
So Harry is, to say shocked is an understatement. He's like, the Dursleys at Hogwarts? Yeah, right. When a pig farts? Maybe.
Oh, so, yeah.
When a pig farts. So Ron leaves for his test, and he was like, I doubt they'll be here, And so Harry sees the other 3 champions go into the not secret chamber, and he paused where he was thinking of the fact that he didn't have any family. No family that would turn up to see him risk his life, unless they're probably on the cheering side. Sorry. That's the Dursleys seem like those, like, we hope you don't survive.
Do you think Dumbledore, wrote to them at all and was like, yo, he's in this, but that's it?
No.
Didn't invite them?
No. Heck no.
I feel like he would. I feel like he would write to them just to tell them, to give them an opportunity.
No, I don't think so. That's just my opinion. I don't think he
But
would
I
do
think
it
he invited the Weasleys, obviously.
Do you think he
knowing
invited
they
them,
would
or do you
come.
think that they were like, Molly was like, I want to be there for
No,
him?
I think he invited them. I think that they would want to come anyway, but I think that he knows how close they are.
Yeah. So he's about to leave to go to the library because he wants to do more research on the hexes and everything. Because he's like, there's not going to be anybody in that room for him. So Hedrick pops his head out and he's
Cedric.
like, what I say?
Cedric pops his head out.
Hedrick. Cedric pops his head out to be like, broski, they're waiting for you.
Oh, gosh.
Gotta get it. Come and get it. And then Harry's obviously confused, and I spelled that word wrong. And he's like, there's a snowball's chance in hell that the Dursleys were in that room, but he went to look anyways.
Is that what it said?
No, that's what I said. Why are you looking at me like that?
Because you could have said Hades.
Oh, that's funny, but no. So reading from the book, Cedric and his parents were just inside the door. Victor Crumb was over in a corner conversing with his dark-haired mother and father. That's Mr. and Mrs. Crumb. You'll find that out in the Felix file, all about the Hufflepuff Crumb.
Slytherin.
Super deep and sweaty.
And they were talking in rapid Bulgarian. He had inherited his father's hooked nose. And on the other side of the room, Fleur was jabbering away in French to her mother. Fleur's little sister Gabrielle was holding her mother's hand. She waved at Harry, who waved back, grinning. Then he saw Mrs. Weasley and Bill standing in the fireplace, beaming at him. And I want to scream,
Standing in the fireplace.
in front of the fireplace. Did I just say in the
You
fireplace?
said in the fireplace.
I was like, did they just arrive by powder?
It's a quick exit, just in case Harry's like, why are you here? You're not my family. And so I said, Weasley's for the freaking win.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So we just drove to Baltimore, and on the way back, we were listening to the audiobook, and this chapter came on. And again, it's been a long time since I've read Goblet, and this part came on, and I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot that this happened, and I had major feels.
It makes me want to cry a little bit,
Yes.
so I'm going to try not to cry.
That's
reading
why
this.
when I made this document with Weasleys are your family. Like, they
Yeah.
are Harry's family.
Yeah. And so Mrs. Weasley's very excited to see Harry and surprise him. And so Bill even says that Charlie wanted to be there as well, but he couldn't get off work. And, those dragons, they're very demanding. and he tells Harry that Charlie had said that he did very well against the Horntail. And I was like, that really says a lot about Charlie because, you know, to support his brother's friend that he doesn't really know that well. He's met him twice.
Right.
And, I mean, part of it, I think, too, is he wants to be there to see the task because he seems like an adrenaline junkie kind of guy.
Yeah.
I
But he
agree.
also, like, cares for Harry. Like, that's his, like, I think they all realize how much he means to his family and to Ron and later on to Ginny. And it just, it's like, have I mentioned how much I love the Weasleys?
Right.
So Harry notices
Whoa.
that Fleur was eyeing Bill from across the room.
Yeah.
I love that little tiny tic tac of the future.
I wonder
And
what
I
happens like after.
She moves to
This.
England to be like, bro, I want to be with you.
but like
not saying
who
bro.
approached who
I
said
guarantee
let's,
she did.
let's do
Oh,
this.
I like
I
that.
guarantee
I
she
like
did.
That.
I feel like those two would fall in love like fast.
I
Like I
agree.
think she had love at first sight.
For sure. It even
Yeah.
mentions that she didn't mind his long hair and his earring.
Yeah, I'm sure she didn't mind it.
I mean, let's talk about the actor Donald Gleason who plays him. He's a good-looking bro.
He is.
Although
He's really
I
cute.
will say, he does very well in Star Wars to the point where I'm like, I need you to like knock it
Not
down
be
a
No,
few
he's
notches.
so
Like,
evil.
Dude, is he
I
gonna be a
know.
villain?
He's like a bad guy.
But he does so well.
yeah, like, and that's the
Yeah.
thing. Like, he's so good at it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need you.
I need you to not because you're Bill.
He's just he's
Something's
just a
gonna
good
happen
actor.
with him and Kylo. I'm just saying.
He's a good actor.
Mm-hmm.
Get it?
Yeah, I get it.
So Harry says it's really nice of them to come, and he thought it might have just been the Dursleys. And Molly purses her lips, and it says from the book, she had always refrained from criticizing the Dursleys in front of Harry, but her eyes flashed every time they were mentioned. And like for me, I really like that Molly does it. So like as we know, because we're going to discuss it, because I know that Megan has some feelings that she's not perfect. Joe she writes the imperfect person perfectly,
Yes.
if that makes sense.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I like that, Sarah.
So I really appreciate that Molly, and I mean, and we know that Harry does not like the Dursleys, but at the end of the day, they are his family. And I like that she doesn't talk about them in a negative way around him. Because I see that in my own personal
Classy
life
broad.
where I have people that like, don't necessarily like their in-laws, and they'll like talk trash about them in front of like, but that's their like that's your significant other's parents, regardless of how you feel about them and regardless how they feel about them, you shouldn't talk about them in that like, and that's just my
Sarah, let me tell
personal-
you about your mother.
but like you know exactly what I mean, like I know
what
you
you mean. Yeah.
so it just I think that she respects that whole situation enough to not talk negatively about them around Harry.
Yeah, my parents are divorced and they never like talked bad about each other to me.
Mhm.
That's
you
so
know,
nice.
and I think that's not true
Until
for
you were
a lot
older.
of
Yes.
Yeah. Aw.
No, but
But like growing up, there
that's
was
important.
never
Yeah.
like, I didn't hear anything from my mom about my dad or my dad from my mom. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was just like
That's-
very civil.
That's a very good thing.
Yeah, and I don't think that's
I don't
super
think
common.
that's common.
I agree.
Yeah.
And like for my like instances, like these people are married to each other still. They have kids, and she'll like, not just one couple, but this happens where they'll talk smack about someone else. But like that's regardless of how you feel at the end of the day. If you're married to that person, you're married to their family. So that's your family. I don't know. It just bothers me when people do that, especially when you're doing it like. He might feel the same way, but at the end of the day, like that could be like his mother, or like that could be her mother. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like,
Right.
you just got to be respectful.
Here's another thing at the end of the day. Don't have conversations like that in front of children. Even if you
Agreed.
think they're too young to
Agreed.
understand,
They
you
aren't.
put off that negative vibe, and guess who hears about it at school the next day? Me. And it wrecks kids' days.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have a conversation, even if you're talking to another adult and your kid's in the room, don't think that they can't hear you, because they can totally hear you, and they're
Yeah.
going to tell their
kids
teacher.
aren't dumb.
Do
Yes.
not have conversation. I'm telling you from a teacher's point of view, don't do it in front of your kids.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that like while I have issues with Molly, like she is a great person,
Mm-hmm.
and
is,
I
yes.
love that she does this for Harry.
Yeah.
She and
Because
Ron
she
both have
didn't-
growth.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
she didn't have to come,
Yeah.
and
I think it says
it says
Crazy
a lot
time.
about her.
and you can even like going, because a little bit further in the book when they're confronted, like they're all sitting at lunch and Hermione's like, whatever, with the whole egg thing, and like she truly thinks of Harry as her 7th son, you know.
Oh, sorry, you beat me. It
Why
didn't
But I
Sorry.
do,
Sorry.
before we go on, I do want to just say, like, I don't mind people having like a couple can have a discussion where they disagree if someone says they're about their family. I'm not saying don't talk to people, but I think you should just be aware of your words.
Be respectful.
Yeah.
You're entitled to have feelings and
Yeah.
thoughts and
Yeah, for
opinions.
sure.
Yeah.
Just be respectful with your delivery.
Yes.
That's all.
Also, don't say it around
And
others.
maybe you
They don't-
guys can
yeah.
become closer. If you
Yeah.
have issue, present it in a respectful way. Otherwise, things won't change.
Yeah.
It'll just fester and get worse.
Yeah. So I
Agreed.
just really
Communication.
appreciate Molly for all that she does for Harry. She's there for him when he needs her. Like, she is a good mother figure for him.
She is.
Yes.
As much as she's not perfect, but my own
Nobody
mother's not
is.
perfect.
Nobody is.
So, Bill starts reminiscing about Hogwarts, and he asks about Sir Cadogan and if he's still around. And they even ask about the fat. I think he asks about the fat lady, and Molly's like, "Oh, she was here in my time. She gave me such a telling off one night when I got back to the dormitory at 4 a.m. So I wanted to read that a little bit because I find that hilarious. Because like I feel like
Arthur and Molly.
yes,
Sitting in a
I love that
tree.
they were like basically high school sweethearts.
Yes.
so are my parents. We said that to them one
My
day.
parents are.
I was
So
like,
are me and Katie.
Hey.
well, my sister's like to my parents the one day. She's like, "Oh, were you guys high school sweethearts?" And they're like, "Oh, I guess we were." Although my mom was engaged to another guy, briefly. Do you never heard that story? He was a lot older, and she came home and she's like, "I'm getting married."
Oh, I remember that.
and my
yeah.
grandfather said, "No, you're not."
I remember that now. Didn't she also was walking down the aisle and told your grandpa that she didn't say yes, and he
Yeah.
told her it was too late now?
No, so like she was about to walk down the aisle, and she goes, "I never said yes. I never said yes." And he's like, "Keep walking."
Oh yeah.
But you know, it's so funny though, because when my other aunt was getting married, he was like, "You know, you don't have to do this. Like, you don't have to go through with it." And they're now divorced. So I find that very interesting. So I'm like, I wonder if my grandfather knew. So I'm going to read from the book. And it says, and I quote, "What were you doing out of your dormitory at 4 a.m, said Bill, surveying his mother with amazement. This is probably the first time he's hearing, like, because I think that, like, kids, obviously, like, you're a product of your environment, but, like, I know that I do things that, like, my parents would have done and have done. So Fred and George must have gotten their mischievousness from somewhere. Obviously, if she's out till 4
Guaranteed
a.m.
They got it from Molly.
Yeah, well, and I think they were both
I
out.
think Arthur's a little more tame than Molly and that kind. I feel like she was a little bit of an adventurer.
She's like a Ginny. Like, I think Ginny's like her mom,
Yes,
you know?
and I
Oh, I
feel
like
like
that.
now that she's a mom, she has to be like,
She
don't
has to
do what
pretend-
I did.
Yeah, be like, don't do that, and be like, behind
Yeah,
the
I
scenes,
did
like, I
that.
totally
Yeah,
did
I
it.
did
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So Mrs. Weasley grinned, her eyes twinkling. "Your father and I had been out for a nighttime stroll," she said. "He got caught by Apollyon Pringle." I wonder if he was the inventor of the Pringles can.
Once pop, can't stop.
"He was the caretaker in those days. Your father still got the marks." Ooh. So I did try to Google him.
Whips
I
and
think it's on my
chains,
phone.
man. They used to hang them by their ankles.
God, I miss the screaming.
Okay, so
That was my belly.
pulled him up.
That
so
was
on
your belly?
That was my stomach over here.
I thought
It's
that
this-
was Fozzie.
like this. Like I feel like my stomach is empty, even though I ate a bagel, and it still keeps making these sounds. And I feel like it only makes these sounds when I'm in like church and it's quiet, and everybody's like,
So on the Wikia, it says his occupation is the caretaker of Hogwarts from 1961 to 1968.
Interesting.
So we know that he was there while Arthur and Molly were there, because she talks about him, obviously. And apparently Hogwarts allowed him to use corporal punishment on students because, you know, I don't know why they said caned, but he still has the mark, so possibly caned and or other things. And the Apollyon is the Greek name for Abaddon, and that's the spiritual being that's named the Destroyer in Christian apocalyptic theology. Yeah, so interesting. Let's see if I wanted to read any of that else.
"Go lay down."
Oh, and so then Bill's like, "Oh, can you, like, do you fancy giving us a tour?" Saying that to Harry. So Harry's like, "Sure." Like, so they go to leave, but they're stopped by Amos Diggory, And he's one big old jerk, claiming Harry probably isn't feeling quite as full of himself now that Hedrick. What is wrong with me?
I think you keep trying to say Hedwig.
I don't know. That Cedric has caught up with him in the points, and Harry's like utterly confused. Cedric tells him to ignore his dad, saying he's been angry ever since Rita Skeeter's article about the Triwizard Tournament, when she made you out you were the only Hogwarts champion. And then Amos points out that Harry didn't bother to correct Rita, so he must love all the attention he's getting. But Cedric has beaten Harry before, and he will do it again.
Hey.
And interestingly enough, I say, Molly goes, Rita Skeeter goes out of her way to cause troubles, Amos. I would have thought you'd know that working at the ministry. But I was like Molly,
Yes,
what about that throuple article with Hermione, Harry, and Crumb?
I stopped this audiobook in the car and looked at Meg and was like, hold on. This doesn't make any sense, Molly.
All right, Sarah.
Molly. So Amos is going to respond, but his wife stopped him with a hand on his arm, and she was like,
Reining him in.
yes. So off Harry and company go. They're wandering around the grounds in the sun. He shows them where the other two schools have been staying. And then Molly was very intrigued by the Whomping Willow because it was planted there after like her time at school. And so this kind of tells us, because at this point, I don't think we know what year they were born. But as I said, I think it's on Pottermore, the year that the Weasleys are born. She's born in 1950, around. So we know that she's older than Harry's parents, at least by 7 years, because this was planted before Remus started school there.
Mm-hmm.
And so she also mentions the former groundskeeper before Hagrid. His name was Og. And then I was trying to think of timeline things, because Hagrid's older than she is, because he was in school with Voldemort, and Voldemort, Tom Riddle, graduated in 45. So by this time, Hagrid was already expelled from Hogwarts. So like, how long was he not at Hogwarts? So like, what did Hagrid do in that time?
I was always under the impression he stayed there.
But like, when did he become
he
like
just, like lived there?
how
in a
did
little house.
like Dumbledore, you get what I'm saying? So if this is the keeper, like the groundskeeper Og in 1961 to 68 possibly, when did Hagrid become the groundskeeper?
He was probably like an apprentice.
Do you think?
Oh, that's a good thought.
Yeah, maybe for a while he was an apprentice, but Og wasn't really ready to like retire.
Because Hagrid was like super young.
Yeah, he was 13.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so you're not really gonna throw that kind of responsibility on a 13-year-old. So I bet he went through an apprenticeship.
Bless you.
Now, whether he lived in the hut, which he probably didn't, I bet he lived at in Hogsmeade, maybe.
Hogsmeade.
Hogsmeade.
So
I
on
like that.
the Wikia, it does say Og was the gamekeeper at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry during Arthur Weasley and Molly Pruitt's time. And if you didn't know Molly Pruitt, that's Molly Weasley. That's her maiden name. He may have had Rubius Hagrid as his assistant, as Hagrid later replaced him. In 1995, Molly, now married to Arthur, reminisced a great deal about Og after seeing the intriguing Whomping Willow when visiting Harry before the third task. But yeah, so that's interesting. That was just like, I was trying to figure out timeline stuff because,
Yeah.
as we know, they're all older, older or younger. I'm trying to find, I have my timeline up. Because, so if she was born, Molly's birthday is October 30th, so roughly 1950. I would assume, are her and Arthur the same age?
I don't know.
If they're not, they're only
Like a
couple
year.
years
Because
apart.
he's
They
born
were
the
in-
same year, so he might have gone, he probably would have gone to school a year ahead of her because his birthday's in February, so he would have.
Yes.
So then she would have started school in 51, so then she would have finished in 60, or she would have gone to school in 62. Right? 61.
No, 61 plus 7 would be 58.
No, I'm thinking, no. So she's born in 50. She wouldn't have started
Oh.
school till 62 because she didn't turn 11 till
Oh, got it.
51.
Got it, yes.
So that following year, 62 is when she would have done, so 1969, correct, is when she would have started school. So she's just, let me think of when they started school. Because the Marauders, Lily and Snape, they started in 71. So she graduated 2 years before them. So she's just, what is that, 9 years older than them? Is that correct math? I don't know. There's
Oh,
a lot of
math.
things going on in my head.
It's a lot more than I thought for some reason.
But think too, so like Harry was their first kid, where Ron is their sixth. So if you think about it that way, because they went to school, started Hogwarts, like the Marauders, Lily, all of them started in 71, and that's when Bill Weasley was roughly born in 70. And then Charlie was born in 72. I don't know how correct that math is, because she was like, my math is wrong. Because one time she said like how many years were between each kid, and then her math was wrong.
Yeah.
So roughly 70, 71 was when Bill was born.
Okay. It just feels like she's their age for some reason.
I think because you just but she isn't. She's older.
Yeah. I
It's
don't know
hard to-
why.
Even the
It's probably
Malfoys,
the movies.
the
For
Malloys.
some reason.
Probably
So-
movies.
The Malfoys seem like they were like way older.
No, they're younger than the Weasleys.
But it makes me. But the way that they are makes me
Yeah.
feel like they're way older.
Mm-hmm.
Like they aren't young at heart.
Yeah. So Bellatrix was born in 51. Andromeda roughly 53. They're guessing because she's between Bellatrix and Narcissa. Malfoy Senior, Lucius. I don't know why I call him Senior. Lucius Malfoy was in 54. Was born. Narcissa was in 55. So. I don't have I have to put this in my timeline, like when Snape and all of them were born, the year and stuff. Anyways, I just was like thinking, and then I had to I had to put in my head where everything was timeline wise of like, where did Hagrid go? Like, was he always at Hogwarts? So he must have been apprentice since he was 13.
I'm gonna headcanon that because he had
That's
nowhere
a
to go.
long time though. So like, when did he?
Maybe he
in
started
like
when he was-
45.
Maybe he started when he was 17. Maybe that's what he was like. Look, I'm gonna retire.
Still a long
do
time.
this till you're an adult, basically. I don't know. Dear Joe.
It says
I
on
mean,
the
years.
wiki, so that's what I was looking up before while I was being quiet. Sorry. Following his expulsion, the Ministry of Magic forbade Hagrid from practicing magic and destroyed his wand. The then Transfiguration teacher, Albus Dumbledore, who was convinced that Hagrid was innocent, nonetheless convinced then headmaster Armando Dippet to give Hagrid the job of gamekeeper and allow him to remain a resident of the school. That makes it sound like literally
Right
at
after.
13 he becomes gamekeeper, whether that's as an apprentice or the real thing. So I think that this is a slip up by Joe,
Could be.
honestly.
But
That
it
she
does-
doesn't mention Hagrid.
But it does make sense, maybe like an assistant, you know?
No, for sure. Yeah, but I think that she should at that
Yeah.
moment in time it would have been Og and Hagrid.
Yeah.
Because it's like
Like, it almost sounds like she doesn't know Hagrid like that.
Right.
Like, it sounds like
Yeah.
she knows him from, like, her kids going to school.
Right.
there.
Not as her, but like he would have
Mhm.
been there
He
with
would-
her
yeah.
too.
yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. So then Harry asks about Percy, and we hear from Bill that he isn't good. He's very upset. The Ministry wants to keep Crouch's disappearance secret, and he's been hauled in for questioning about the instructions that Crouch has been sending him. It says, they seem to think there's a chance they weren't genuinely written by him. Percy's been under a lot of strain, and I was like, they're not wrong. And I'm like,
Yeah.
then we find out that Fudge is going to be filling in for Crouch and judging the final task.
Here's the thing with Percy too. Like we know the major fallout is coming.
Mm.
This is a lot of like they said strain, and he's getting he's being fed just by the Ministry every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it's his regular job. This is his life. Like he lets it be his life. He is so saturated that he literally has to crawl out of that hole in 7 to get out. So I
Yeah.
feel like the Ministry completely broke him.
I agree. And I
Percy-
think
That's a
Go
good
ahead.
point.
I'm thinking like of when I get really stressed out and I stand
You're
it.
not a very nice lady.
That is correct.
I
And
think a
like,
lot of people
anything
aren't
I'm-
nice when they get stressed.
Well, but like anything that's
True.
ever made me mad, like there are times where like I don't ever want to speak to my family again, and they didn't do anything to me, like. Where I'm just like
Usually
something
when-
will like say like someone ate a chicken nugget of mine, not ever happened, but like
Who drank a glass out of a bottle of wine?
but like if that had happened like when I was stressed, like I would
would have been done.
livid.
It
You
would've
know what I
been
mean?
done.
Katie knows how I can get with stress.
So
I,
like
too.
I think I get
Me
more
too.
emotional than I get like angry.
But, like, when I
I
get
get
angry.
sad.
what I'm saying about it though is like this is all helping the bad situation of him cutting himself off from his family
True.
because he's probably sitting there being like, I bet you that I would have had a better reputation and a better start if my dad had gone and done things and like not just and like
Start blaming
yes,
other people.
Yes.
He's making a narrative in his head.
And
I mean,
yes.
he already felt that way about his dad. He already felt some type of way about his dad way back when.
But I
Yeah.
think
You
that
know
like,
what? And it just like, and I bet people at the ministry
Festers.
for sure.
feel like since Percy's a little different and he's a little bit more open about saying how his dad is disappointed in what his dad has done, I bet higher ups at the ministry are like, your dad blah 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 blah, because we know a lot of people don't really, a lot of the not nice higher up people don't really care about Arthur,
Yes.
but a lot of like the lower level people like totally love him.
Right.
Because he's a nice guy.
Right.
He's not a
so
crooked-
I feel
And
like they're feeding him, and if they're higher ups at the ministry, then this is the right way to think, and I'm just going to cut myself off and get away from them.
Because
And
Percy
not
wants to be
associate.
with them.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
know,
And-
and
but
I
I
just
wanted
feel
to
like
say
the ministry breaks
something
him.
about Arthur because
Give
I
it to
think
me.
that like he instills something like just because he's working for a wage and he's able to at least like his kids don't have every single thing in the world, but they come from a loving family where he shows them that like you want to go to work and love your job. You don't want to go to work and just work because that's not what life's
not
about.
a
You need
life.
to have fun.
Yep.
You need to like what you do, and he instills in his family that work is not the most important thing in your life. Family is having fun. And work is just something like that's how I view like my job. Like I have a job so I can pay my bills and so I can do things I like to do. It's not something that I, think is like my number one priority in life. My number one priority in life is like my family, my friends, things that I like to do. And I think that's something he really instills in his family. There's more important things,
Yeah.
I love Arthur for that because I think that a lot of the times people get super caught up in work, and I think that that's a lot of problems with companies in general is that they think that people care more about their job than anything, and a lot of other countries have gotten it right where it's like, no, you need to give benefits to people with vacation time and time off and have time with their families, because I'm sorry, but it makes me mad on the daily that I spend more time at work than I do with Katie.
Yeah.
And it just irks me. And the fact that that's clearly what Arthur's trying to instill is that if you're going to be at work and you have to be there, at least do something that you love. And, yes, you may take some sacrifices for it. You may not make the biggest paycheck, but at least I go into work every day and I don't hate it. And
Well,
I think that is more important than anything.
Agreed.
And like, people say sometimes that they think that, Arthur did the family wrong
I disagree.
by doing that. And I strongly
Because
disagree
think
with
of
that
like
because
how miserable, like when you truly like, so my mom was in a job
how
for,
would Arthur have been as a father if he
Yes.
hated his job?
yes, my mom was in a job for 3 years
Right.
that like by the end of it was sucking her life force basically. Like she just wasn't the same. Not that she was drinking a ton, but she like would have a glass of wine every day when she came home, and that's not my mom. And like the second she got a new job, my dad's like, "You're sleeping better." He goes, "You're happier." He's like, you have completely changed since this job that you were at."
Yep.
And like the thing with Arthur too is like, his family didn't go without. Yes, there were things like growing up, there were things that I didn't get because my parents didn't have a crazy ton of money because they worked hard to get me a good education, which is something I'm very grateful for. So I wasn't allowed to like have extra things, but I never felt like I was missing out. I never
Right.
felt that and that's something when you grow up, like,
The Weasleys always have food on the table.
yes.
The kids always get to school
Yes.
to the train on time.
Have
they
everything
have
they
robes.
need.
They have books. They have a wand. Do all of them
And-
have brand new brooms?
and
No.
they're
Do
loved.
all of them have
Yes.
brand new owls? No. But they're happy.
You
Well,
got
and
a
I think,
clean bottom, and you're good to go.
At
a
this
roof
point
over
in
your
time,
head, food on your
I
plate.
can understand where Ron is coming from, being like, because
Well, he gets frustrated, and that's fine.
Yes.
I mean, you don't have to love
Yes.
your situation.
But I think like when he's grown up and he has his own kids, he goes to a
understands.
job where he quits being an Auror, which probably made great money. And granted, he does now work for Weasley Wizard Wheezes, where he's also probably making great money. But he's also doing something he loves. So he probably realizes once he became a father, being like, I'm going to do the exact same thing my father did and make sure that
Yeah.
like my kids know that they come from a love family. We're doing fun things. I'm spending time with them. I think that's it's an important thing to learn.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay.
Lightning bolt round.
Yes.
All right, from Eddie in the Discord chat. Do you think you would think ahead to blackmail Rita with Hermione's discovery, or go straight for exposing her getting caught in the moment?
I'd go straight for it because I'm not.
Ooh.
Wouldn't think that far. I'm not a Hermione.
I think I would be a little Hermione and try to.
I think
Be
I
some
would be a little bit
sneaky sneak.
Hermione. I think her blackmailing Rita like this is a little bit of her Slytherin showing.
Agreed.
100%.
Agreed.
And yeah, that's definitely something I
She's
would
very
think to do.
Bob's Apron with it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
I just
Don't-
wouldn't have that thought. I'd
Yeah.
be like, I'm gonna get you, and I'm gonna get you right now because it's what I'm thinking
I'm
about.
gonna get you.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I think I might agree with Tiffany.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been smart about it.
You
I
wouldn't
don't-
blackmail her.
I don't think you would even. You would have just been like, you would have sent the administrating mail, like
Two
some
wrongs
snail.
don't
Hey,
make it right.
hey, I think
Just so you know.
Rita might be a unregistered animagus.
Signed anonymous.
That's so true.
A Hufflepuff named Crumb.
Don't come looking for me.
I disguised my handwriting. I wrote it with my left hand, so you don't know it's me.
I pasted it with magazine clippings.
Check her out. She's an unregistered animagus. How can you tell? Like, is there like a spell you could do on someone?
No, I
'Cause,
think there's
like-
literally just a list. I think that in my mind that's what Hermione was going to check in the library because I think that there's
Oh.
a list of registered animagus.
Yeah.
No,
Anime-
but what I'm saying, if you're unregistered, how can you be like?
Like a
You could just be like,
Revelia
I'm
or
not.
something.
You know what I mean? Like, how can she
If there's
like
a
if I came up to Katie and she's being a little sneaky sneak?
Must be my husband.
So it is, or some other man that I just heard. So if you're being a sneaky sneak and you're on an unregistered animagus, first of all, what would your thing be? What would you be?
probably a cat
Okay, so you're turning into
or a
little,
dog.
You probably would be a dog.
Probably be a dog.
Yeah, I honestly I would be a cat.
I'd want to
1000%.
be a cat, but I'd probably be.
You're
a dog.
like that mean cat.
For sure. I'm
Like-
the one that's knocking stuff off your shelves
Like-
and your table and all of that.
No,
yeah.
yeah, but you're also the cat that's like, ooh, pet me, don't touch me.
too much.
Yes.
Stop.
So I think that if I came up to you and I was like, Katie, I know that you're an unregistered animagus, and you're like, no, I'm not. How would I prove to be like, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm big, you're small, I'm smart, you're dumb?
Because
If
her name
they're-
wouldn't be on the list.
No,
I don't
But-
think it just
but-
pops up. That's not what I'm saying. How are you going to prove it to be like, do you get what I'm
I
saying?
think there's a spell.
Yes, if there's a
Reveal
spell
yourself.
to change you
Reveal
from,
yourself.
as we see with Pettigrew, from your animagus form to your human form, there's got to be
Mm.
something to force you into your animagus form.
True.
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Good point.
What I'm saying still makes sense though. I'm saying
That's
like
not what I mean, though. Your name, how would you get your name on the list?
you
I
have
think-
to go register.
I
But
understand
if you
that.
are
If you
unregistered,
are
then how would
unregistered,
how can you prove it? If she just comes up to you and goes, "Are you an unregistered animagus?" You can say no. How do I prove?
are you
that you
are
are.
you an animagus at all? And you could just be like, no. How am I? How could
Oh.
I prove that? Is what I'm saying.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh.
I guess.
So like, we're thinking maybe there's a spell that forces you to change, and then there's
Maybe.
your proof.
Because like, how are you going to prove it? Be like, no, like I'm not. And you're like, okay, and you move on your merry way.
Yeah.
All right, let's go. Let's move on our merry way.
Megan, do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do.
She just doesn't want to talk about it anymore.
She just knows that I'm
Nor do
right.
I. Next
And she's wrong.
my
And I'm big and
God.
she's small. And I'm
Oh.
smart and she's dumb.
All
Oh my
right,
God.
careful.
My name's Matilda and I have magic and you don't. You're the one saying that. Just saying.
That's right. I'm dating DeVito. I got the
Marty keeps asking me. He's like, I have things to do with that cutout. Where is it? And I'm like, no.
oh my god.
He's asked me like 3 times. He's like, where's the Danny DeVito? I was like,
Danny.
Vinny asks, in what section of the Daily Prophet are these articles from Rita? Sports? Well, sometimes she's front page. Like this last one was front page.
I feel like it
No.
varies.
I think she's in like the what is that?
Gossip.
The sports. Oh, I guess it would be sports and leisure, maybe.
Or like the like Dear Whoever, where they like answer
Yeah.
a question.
But
from
I
the
feel
listen-
like
or
right
a reader.
now, with the Triwizard Tournament, like it's front page material.
Yeah.
She gets front page a lot
Yeah, I
for all the
think it's front page.
clickbait.
I wonder what people thought about
Because the Daily Prophet is garbage.
with this article coming out and talking about like, well, a couple of years ago, because they kept that all very hush hush about the stuff at
They did.
school.
They did.
So were people writing me like, what do you mean there was like this stuff happening?
Oh, I
like,
guarantee
blah-blah-blah-blah. Well, they weren't typing because that wasn't a thing, but scratching on some scrolls.
Yeah, no, I think people were definitely going to be like, wait, what?
For sure.
Eddie asks if any living characters could come to school, such as Sirius ignoring his problem with the law, as Harry's family, who would you think would be best for him? Stick with Mrs. Weasley and Bill, or someone else?
Sirius and Remus. Sirius and Mrs. Weasley.
I would say Remus and Mrs. Weasley.
Sirius, Remus, and Mrs. Weasley.
I think Harry would really have liked to see Sirius, because Sirius has been very fatherly, and I can see him being like, kind of lightening up the situation a little bit, but also being like, here's some tips, like here's some spells, have you tried these?
Yeah, I think that it would have been good for Remus to be there too, but I think that Remus is just like in this moment in time, he's still kind of like hating himself. He's back
Always.
in
I
that.
think he's out, yeah.
Well, yeah,
No,
'cause
he
it's his
always
first
is, but I
year
just think especially because this
of
is
being
Goblet of Fire, and
professor.
it just came out that he's a werewolf, so now he's just kind of like in seclusion.
He's a werewolf?
Welcome.
Yeah.
What?
But I actually think that Mrs. Weasley definitely needed to be there, because this like
sure.
solidifies how much of a mother figure
I
she
wish
is.
Yes.
Arthur could have been there.
I know.
Yeah, what
He's
do you
working.
do?
Arthur,
9
Mrs.
to
Weasley,
5.
Sirius, Remus. It would be those four. Because I mean, a family can be more than two people.
Yeah, I bet.
Correct. A family can be more
These
than
are
two
facts.
people. True.
Well, I just feel like a lot of the other. I mean, I guess Fleur has her mom and dad and Gabrielle, but
I
like,
did mention her dad.
just
Just
her
her
mom
mom.
and sister.
oh, see, so like, why is everybody just two people?
Maybe
Like,
you only get two.
Yeah, but maybe like he
I don't
only
know.
because Charlie would have come if he wasn't
Oh
working.
yeah, true.
But maybe Crumb was an only sibling, and maybe
You
and
mean
we
an
know
only
Cedric
child?
was. Well, only sibling. I guess that's fine.
I'm a brother to myself.
He is when he talks to his twin in the mirror every day. Tiffany
Oh my
and
God.
Katie, you.
I'm Tiffany. That's Tiffany.
She's used to yelling at me,
Tiffany.
so it just came out.
Tiffany.
You fake Tiffany.
All right, last lightning bolt. Eddie asks, "Are there any extra spells or research you think Harry should have done for the third task?"
Yeah, Avada.
Tiffany. I don't know. I think he did pretty good. But
Yeah, I think he did
did
pretty
well. I mean, those are a lot of good like defensive ones, because like a lot of the other hexes I can think of, like do stuff that I don't think would really
Maybe like a
help.
silencing one for yourself.
Use like a
Like-
jelly legs on the Scroot.
Right.
Or the spider.
What if you did
Yeah.
a jelly legs jinx on like the Sphinx? She'd be mad.
She would be mad. She'd
She'd
probably
be
attack
super
right
mad.
away. All right, fan story.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, this one comes from Emma Dumitra. Dear Tiffany, Megan, Katie, and Sarah, my name is Emma, and I've been listening to your podcast since February when I was recovering from a concussion in the middle of a busy
gosh.
September of nursing school.
Oh
A
gosh.
semester? You said September.
Oh, in the middle of a busy semester of nursing school. I live about an hour east of Vancouver, Canada, and my sister introduced me to your podcast because she wanted me to have company while I was too sick to do much of anything. I've been meaning to write to you for a while, but I'm very internet shy and have been putting it off. As the Facebook community has grown, I've become intimidated by its size, even though I love being a part of the Potter fandom. Then I just started listening to your 1 year episode today, whenever this was, and almost started crying along with you all. I realize that this podcast has touched me deeply because all four of you have been so vulnerable in a public sphere, and I want to thank you for that, as well as learn from that by practicing that same vulnerability in return. So here I am, finally ready to share my Potter story. And she apologized for being long. Don't apologize. I am a Hufflepuff, and my second house is Ravenclaw. I have a 10-inch large wand with a unicorn hair core and supple flexibility. My Patronus is a mink.
That's pretty
Cool.
Mhm. I grew up in a very conservative Christian home and was not introduced to Harry Potter until I reached middle school, which I'm sure you have in the States. It's basically grades 6 through 8 after elementary school, but before high school. But my best friend was a huge Potter fan. She was always telling me how she loved the series, but refused to tell me too much about it because she wanted me to experience for myself. A good friend.
That is a good friend.
I was intrigued, desperately jealous, and started begging my parents to let me read the series. It took a while, but when I was 15, I finally got permission. I vividly remember holding Philosopher's Stone in my hand and thinking, I will remember this moment forever, and I was hooked from the first sentence. Thanks to my kind friend, I had no spoilers throughout the entire reading experience. I devoured the books in a week and started rereading them more slowly immediately
Wow.
after I finished because of how blown away I was by it all.
Wow.
That's
a lot of
That's a
reading.
lot
Yeah.
of reading. Wow.
My love for the series has only grown deeper as I've gotten older, and it has helped me find a way to live a meaningful life in the middle of great challenges. At the end of my senior year, my mother was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and she died of it 2 years later. I might not have come to the wonderful place I am today if it wasn't for Harry and all his losses, and the lessons he learned from Dumbledore about death. In The Order of the Phoenix, when Lord Voldemort tries to possess Harry at the Ministry, Dumbledore tells Harry that his grief and love for Sirius drove Voldemort out. Similarly, in Deathly Hallows, as Harry buries Dobby, he realizes that he had finally learned control. Grief, it seemed, drove Voldemort out. Through Dumbledore, of course, would have said that it was love. This lesson has taught me to treasure my grief as an important aspect of my life. Grief means that I was privileged to have something so precious, even if only for a little while, and I now have the ability to find incredible joy in my life despite the lingering sadness. Your podcast is a special part of that, and I thank you. Woo. Thank you for everything you do. Tiffany, I love all your funny lines, your deep thoughts, and the way you care so much about the other hosts. Megan, I love your soapboxes, how passionate you are, and how you share them in a caring way. Katie, I love the sound of your voice on the podcast and the courage and loyalty you show by being part of the team. And Sarah, I love your silliness, and I love that you cry on the podcast. I'm also
Funny because she's crying now.
Only a little.
I'm also a huge fan of your Harry Potter timeline. I've always wanted to make one of those. You all have wonderful insights, and I appreciate them. Even though I'm definitely one of those people who starts hollering at the podcast when you get a fact wrong. I'm sorry. Each of you brings something special to this project, and I'm grateful that I get to be a part of it, even though I'm pretty quiet on an online presence. Thank you for what you do, Emma.
Yes.
P.S. If you ever come to Vancouver and want to meet a fan or get some travel recommendations, you're more than welcome to call me up.
I've
I'd
always
love to
wanted
go to Vancouver. First
of all,
I love your
Thank
story.
you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I like that I talked about my timeline today.
Perfect
Perfect timing.
I was just thinking, is your timeline in a Google Doc?
it's a word.
It's not ready to be shared yet, Megan.
Let
'cause
her
I
ready.
know
Let her
Megan
keep working.
really
I was
wants to
just-
look at it.
No, I was just saying it would be really awesome if we could share. I'm not saying like share it with editing privileges, but share it so that people can like see what we have so far, because people are really interested in it.
Do you have a mouse in your pocket? Who's this we speak of?
Ooh.
We meaning the listeners.
We have made the doc?
No.
Is what I was talking
Anyways, thank you
Emma,
for sharing that.
Thank you. I mean, I can speak for all of us and say we're sorry for your losses,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I'm
Oh.
so glad that Harry has been there for you, as it's been for everybody for all different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I
Do you
love
wanna
how much
know-
you just like let this magic touch you.
I'm jealous that I wish that I could be in like middle school again and have time where I could read the series in a week.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be so great.
What
to
a
just be
feat.
able. Yeah,
Honestly, that's epic.
I know. I want to do that.
Emma's
so
epic.
bad.
Emma's
I need to
epic.
take a week of vacation to read Harry Potter. Bye.
I'm gonna take a week of vacation to get my life in order.
Honestly.
I say that probably every other week.
I
Like,
know.
I just need a week off. I need to like do laundry and clean my house.
Oh my
I have to
gosh.
say, I really like your words on grief, so that was very beautiful.
Yes,
Yes,
it
that was very well written,
Yes.
and everyone should listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
Good
Yes.
words to live by.
Yes.
Oh, it's me.
Yep, that's great.
You can follow us on Facebook at Swish and Flick Podcast and on Twitter and Instagram at Swish Flickcast. You can subscribe to us on YouTube and also hit that little bell notification to get a pop-up whenever we post a new video. You can also support us on Patreon at patreon.com/SwishFlickcast to join our Discord channel and give us all of these awesome lightning bolt questions and chat throughout the episodes while we're recording. It's so much fun. Like, that's probably one of my favorite things that we've done with Patreon so far. And also check out our website, swishflickcast.com, and you can find all of this info in one spot along with all of our merch.
Merch. New merch coming soon. Ish.
Is there?
Some.
Designs are in the works.
There's always some
Some.
designs in the back of our head.
Okay.
Can we design a shirt with the face on the back of it, like it's almost like Quirrell's face
Oh my god.
on one side and Voldemort on the
Write
other?
it down.
That's hilarious.
So you can follow me on Twitter at tiffswish_flick. I tweet about a lot of different things. What am I doing? Summertime. That's it.
Summertime sadness. Actually, by the time this comes out, it's closer to that. Summertime. Is this coming out on the Kent weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the last weekend in August.
July.
July.
What are you doing? Make it quick.
Follow Katie and I at the Peaches Family on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. And shout out to the Brookhart Project because they have successfully, up to this point, completed a round of IVF, and just everybody send them sticky baby dust and hope that she stays pregnant for 9 more months.
Yes.
Shout out to anyone who is trying to become a mom, dad, whatever.
It's
parents.
hard.
It's hard. Shout out
The
to anyone who
stars
has
have to align.
experienced any loss or
Yeah.
of any kind.
Getting pregnant
and
is really a miracle.
It really
When
is.
you think
I
about it,
cannot believe how
even
many kids there are in the world.
Without IVF
Yeah.
or anything, like
It's a
it
miracle.
it is a miracle.
Yeah.
It's a miracle.
Shout out to all the parents
Yes.
of all walks of life.
You raised those babes, and you raised them right, and you raised them with Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about you.
I got nothing going on. So follow me at O'Malley.
She's basically just taking orders from Lady Supreme.
That's facts. Probably not moving to Columbus, staying in Cleveland. I'm happy about that. Yeah. Maybe in like 3 years when I'm done with school.
I like having you here because I love your face.
Should Katie and I move to Orlando?
No.
Tell us in the comments.
No. No. Tiffany has put her foot down.
I'm just saying, I need my people.
We love you. Love all you guys.
Hate you all.
On that note, that concludes this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening, and don't let the muggles get you down.
Amazing! Just like my voice!
For Voldemort and Valor.
I've had 1.5 peaches, and I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to go. I want to start this episode.
Shut up.
Everybody that says that Crumb is Slytherin is wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we agree.
I mean,
I agree with you, Megan. He's Hufflepuff with his Huffle stuff.
good morning, good morning. Boo, doo, 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 good morning to you.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Oh, look at that wee pop. Phones down, eyes up, smiles on. Let's talk Potter.
Can I have a tissue?
Do you have
For
an
your
issue?
I do. My nose is running.
Better go catch it. Do you see if you can
What can
toss
I
one
give
into
her,
my
my
mouth?
gusher?
No.
Megan, see if you can throw one into my mouth. I hate gushers. Oh, it just gushed in my mouth.
You made me waste that on you. Tiffany.
Seventh heaven, when I see their happy faces.
If you guys don't stop, I'm about to open another
smiling back
snack.
at me. Seventh heaven, I know there's no greater feeling than the love of family. Where can you go when the world don't treat you right? The answer is home. That's the one place that you'll find. Seventh heaven. Seventh heaven. Was Divide the last one?
Yeah.
I didn't love
You know what I
Divide.
really liked? Addition
That's one of his
and subtraction.
That's one of his albums.
Yeah,
He has a plus, a multiply, and
I
a
really
divide.
like slope formula.
Yeah. Slope intercept form.
Yeah.
I really
So
love
good.
cos side, you know.
What coastlines? I like finding X.
I love algebra.
Algebra.
Oh, gee.
I
I'm
like
a tree.
algebra.
I also really enjoy physics. I built a bridge once and had to see how much weight it held. And it held up pretty well.
Oh, yeah, I got a robot working in my house now.
Legit, I once built a bridge.
And then I got over it.
I thought you said a brain, and I was like,
A bridge. I did build the bridge when I was a little baby inside my mama.
I built a bridge out of toothpicks and straws.
Mine was out of that balsam wood, I think.